Jack Carr.
What's up, man? Good to see you.
Welcome, welcome to the show, man.
Welcome to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you for taking the time. I know this has been a thing that has been in preparation since 2024. That's how long the planning for this was.
Really?
Yeah, because I first reached out to your agent back in 2024 and was like, hey, man, I really want to interview Jack Carr. Can I somehow get in touch with him, or like, would you be able to help me set that up? And he's like, yeah, dude, no problem. And I mean, of course, your schedule's been all over the place because you've got a million things going on, and I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about that. But yeah, so I've been kind of like in the middle of the transition. I was PCSing, I was moving across, moving around the country, and then you have stuff going on. I was just trying to wait for things to line up perfectly where it's like, hey, we can both be in the same place at the same time, and it's not going to put too much strain on you and what you have going on. So I'm glad that this was able to work out.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I didn't know it was in. David didn't tell me. So how did you get in touch with David anyway? Did you reach right after Simon & Schuster? And
I think I just emailed him. So funny enough, I met a guy. I don't know if you're familiar with the nonprofit Veteran Success Resource Group or not.
I don't think so.
It's ran by a guy named Scott Davidson. He's one of the founders of the organization. But anyway, Veteran Success Resource Group does a lot of good things for the veteran community out in the Virginia area near D.C. And I was at an event of theirs that they were holding. It was a dinner event in D.C., I think in 2024. And I met an individual there who's like, hey, you do podcasting? Would you ever be interested in like interviewing Jack Carr? I was like, yeah, dude, of course I would want to interview Jack Carr. Like, why wouldn't I do that? Like, anybody should jump at the opportunity to do that. And he's like, well, I've got his agent's email. If you want to like shoot him an email, I was like, yes, please, dude. Thank you, please. And so he gave me your agent's email, and I shot him an email. I've been just kind of talking back and forth with him throughout the past year, and things finally lined up where I was able to take a weekend to get out of town and come out here. So I'm glad to be here. But yeah, and again, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for you taking the time out of your very busy schedule.
Absolutely. So glad this worked out. Yeah, it's David, my publicist. And, so he's been trying to protect me for the last years. I've been writing Cry Havoc, which is the book that comes out in October. Yeah. But it ended up taking a lot longer than I thought. So he's been trying to like keep the schedule free. So because it's interruptions that really get you. So writing along, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I have a podcast, or wait a sec, I have to do my podcast, or wait, there's an interview, or whatever it is, and then it's just an interruption. Same thing with like, and now I gotta get the kids, but I'm writing, and I gotta I'm gonna be late, and so it's like just this crazy interruption after interruption after interruption. So I think he's trying to like fend things off and give me a little time to write, but that's just how it goes. But I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad we're here. And nice Solomons, by the way. But my Solomons, there's still dust on these things from the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. I just came from there.
No kidding.
We were filming the latest show. So there, as I slipped into them today, since I got home, I've just been doing essentially things from home, doing these pitches for a different TV show, which is really interesting to do. And so I kicked these off as soon as I got home. But when I put them on today, I was just remembering being in the Atlas Mountains. Got to bring my family with me this time. My youngest son and my wife. So got to hang out with Chris Pratt in his tent there as we're filming in this remote location.
It's cool, man.
Pretty wild. But yeah, the dirt on the Solomons is from Morocco.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't have these. Haven't had any dirt on them from anywhere interesting, but they've
look nice and clean.
The reason I got these originally was because of some Navy SEALs that I worked with.
Really?
Yeah, when I was in Syria and Iraq, I worked with a couple Navy SEALs. Actually, funny enough, I got promoted to first lieutenant by some Navy SEAls.
No way.
I asked them, I was like, it's super unorthodox. I was like, hey, man, like, there's not any Marines out here with us, really. Like, I mean, I'm supposed to get promoted. Would you guys mind pinning me? And they're like, yeah, sure, of course. That's cool. So we went out. We were just in Syria, and we shot some guns at the range, and they just pinned first lieutenant rank on me. And I was like, dude, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, super unorthodox. But I've always had like this real affinity and just like appreciation and respect and admiration and just like there's something about the personalities that I've come across from most of the Navy SEALs I've done work with or like been affiliated with or connected with in any way, shape, or form, where I just like really identify with their personalities of being very driven, intrinsically motivated, and just folks that get after it and are just driven individuals. Yeah. And there's something to be respected about that. And I really look up to that and aspire to be like that in my own life, even if that's not the career choice or career path that I took. And so they basically, like, I was like, where'd you guys get your shoes? What kind of shoes are those? Because they had the same shoes on, and they're like, oh, there's this brand, and they're like, they're some of the greatest pair of shoes we've had for a long time. And I was like, well, dude, I'm going to get a pair when I get home.
Yeah.
So I think I bought these in Arizona, actually.
Nice.
I think I got them in Phoenix.
Yeah, it was funny because we're in the tent. They have these little air conditioners that weren't working very well, and these like small tents in between takes where the actors can go. And so we were hanging out with Chris, and my wife's looking at both of us, and she's like, because Chris is in character, like, dressed like James Reece.
Yeah.
And she's looking at both of us like this, and she's like, "Wait a second. You guys are dressed almost exactly the same." And like, so he's in his Solomons, he's in his Cole pants. I had Coles on at the time, like the thin ones, and like a bluish t-shirt, and that's exactly what he was, and gaiters, and and a ball cap, and that's what he was wearing exactly for the role. So yeah, I love the Solomons.
Was that did you give him the tips on how he needed to dress for the role?
Well, they're in the book, so I'm very specific with gear and weaponry, because I think it tells you a lot about someone's character. It tells you a lot about them. You can say, like, if you see someone was walk in here and say hi, and they were carry a firearm or whatever, and you're looking at them and you see, okay, they're leather belt, leather holster, Cox and Lock 1911. Okay, they're a certain age. You kind of can guess, like, okay, who they may have trained with, and just it tells you something about them. And then somebody maybe a little younger comes in, and they're in a nylon belt, Kydex holster, striker fire pistol, like, something you can see what kind of sunglasses they're wearing, Oakley's, gaiters, whatever. All these things like tell you something about them, just like the car somebody drives.
Sure.
And so all these things inform the character. So I'm very specific with those sorts of things in the book. And luckily I don't have to look up like Navy SEAL knife and see what pops up and then have that person carry that, because I can put things in there that either I worked with or that would kind of differentiate SEAL from Army Special Forces from Marine Raider or whatever else, just because of the gear that we get issued and the stuff that we kind of lean towards because of our history, our heritage, and what's worked for us downrange. So it's so I incorporate all that into the novels.
I think one of the things that is a big defining characteristic of some of the work that you've done in that aspect is the fact that your meticulous attention to detail for specific things that are even micro niche down to the level of what type of knife or what type of pants or glasses or hat that an individual is wearing or carrying or armed with is one of those things that separates your work from other people that may be writing work that may not have served or may have served in a different capacity. Because especially when it comes to storytelling, like you said, you can tell a lot about somebody based on what kind of a car they drive, right? You can tell a lot about somebody based on like the clothing they wear too, and like the type of gear that they wear, and like you're saying, and I think that plays such a major role in storytelling and gets people more engaged and pulled into the story because they're like, this is believable. That's what these guys typically do carry. Like this, and people can identify with that. And I think that's one of the reasons, not one of the reasons, but I would say just another extraneous factor that brings this stuff to life so well for your stories that you've written. But before we get too much deeper, just in case people at home don't know, which it's probably going to be unlikely they don't know who you are at this point anyway, but I figure I wanted to do kind of like a little intro and just give people kind of a little bit of context as your background, so that way people who may or may not have heard of you can know a little bit about who this person is that we're sitting down with today. So, and fortunately, David was kind enough to provide me with some stuff to be able to have some good, accurate information.
Wonderful.
So,
good job, David.
So obviously, retired Navy SEAL, U.S. Navy SEAL Lieutenant Commander, retired, which Lieutenant Commander is an 04, for those of you that aren't aware. Jack Carr is a #1 New York Times bestselling author of 7 political thrillers: The Terminalist, True Believer, Savage Son, The Devil's Hand, In the Blood, Only the Dead, and Red Sky Mourning. His 8th novel, Cry Havoc, comes out this October 7th of 2025, the 7th of October. So keep an eye out for that. It's coming out pretty soon. Jack also collaborated with the Pulitzer Prize nominated historian James M. Scott for a nonfiction release in 2024, targeted Beirut, right here. Led special operations teams as a team leader, platoon commander, troop commander, and task unit commander during Operation Iraqi Freedom. And Operation Enduring Freedom as well. During his 20 years in naval special warfare, he transitioned from an enlisted SEAL sniper to a junior officer leading assault and sniper teams in Iraq and Afghanistan, to a platoon commander practicing counterinsurgency in the southern Philippines, to commanding a special operations task unit in the most Iranian-influenced section of southern Iraq throughout the tumultuous drawdown of U.S. forces. So obviously you have quite a bit of experience and credibility based on like the things that you have done with your very interesting career. I didn't know that you were a prior enlisted.
Yeah,
I didn't know
of course.
that. And
Yeah.
I also didn't know you were an officer, that you were retired as an officer.
That's good.
That's
probably good.
That's cool though, because I think that you portray yourself, and maybe it's not even just how you portray yourself, but you give off this, I guess, if you want to call it an aura of just a very down-to-earth, humble person who is just genuine. A genuine dude who speaks from the heart and is just like, I mean, obviously you're very friendly, very outgoing, easy to talk to, easy to get along with guy, and everything I've seen from you, all like the entire time I've been kind of following you has just been nothing but positive, and the influence that you've had on the community and on folks that have an interest in special operations or in military history, I think has been pretty profound. And I again, like I'm glad that I'm finally getting the opportunity to sit down.
No, that's awesome,
with a
man.
guy
I have
like
tons
you
of
too.
questions for you, but we'll have to do that on maybe my podcast. Otherwise,
Well,
I'll just be asking questions of you the whole time, you know?
I've never been in the Navy, but I'm prior enlisted as well. So it's like
Yeah,
I have an appreciation for that.
I mean, I guess it's good that I still have friends from kindergarten and first grade that are like, hey, you're the same person that I slid down the slide with when we were 6 years old.
I love that.
You know, and that's just, I don't know how to be anything else. It'd be very difficult, especially in today's day and age where you kind of have to be out there forward facing because there's so many other distractions out there that there weren't in, let's say 1975, 85, 95, even 2005, if you're an author. So you kind of have to be more forward facing. And it would be very difficult to be in that position and then not be yourself or try to have to put on an act or something like that. That would be exhausting. I'm exhausted enough as it is.
Yeah.
So to add another layer to that would just put me right under.
I can't imagine. I would imagine it would be a lot of work to try to put on a persona that's not actually you, because then you have to remember all the stuff you made up. And it's like, I don't know anybody that's busy doing those things that you're doing that has time for that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's just much easier, like, hey, just being yourself. Then you don't have to worry about that preparatory stuff to pretend to be something. You just be yourself, and then you can focus on the actual work that's getting done. Like all the TV shows stuff, all the books that you're doing, all the interviews you're doing, all the news meetups you're doing, everything that you're doing, traveling around the country, going to UFC fights. I mean, you have been a very busy man. So I am curious, where did you grow up?
Northern California. So
Northern
California.
California.
Keep it to Northern California. And so got to be outdoors a lot. Grew up during a great time in the 80s. And I want to go back. I'd go back. If I could just wake up on like January 1st, 1980, and then, go through the 80s to, January 1st, 1990, and then it'd be 1980 again, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
The 80s was a great time in America, wasn't it?
It was awesome. It was so great. Don't get me started.
I
actually want to build a time machine. And my idea is to have like one of those old TVs that came in it was like encased in oak. Like I don't even know how they move these things in, but just like encased in oak. It was a big screen TV or whatever. So have one of those like against the wall over here, and then put a DeLorean right here and have the windshield taken off. But you get in, you sit in the DeLorean seat like this, and then you watch old movies on VHS, on Beta, on video disc player, which for those who remember is not a laser disc, but it was like an actual, almost like a record player that would like skip along. Came out in the 70s, and just watch movies like that, and just transport yourself back to the 80s that way. So that's my longer term goal. I think my podcast studio at the house is probably the place that I will convert eventually into my time machine. Sure. But that's my idea. So, but I was very lucky that my mom was a librarian. I grew up surrounded by books and a love of reading. So books were just a natural part of my life from the earliest days. And it was just like normal sitting down to dinner. Then, hey, we're going to read, and just reading. I've never not had a book in essentially reading one or knowing what I was going to read next. And right now I'm working my way through all the Le Carrés from the beginning onward, because I've read different ones from different time periods, just because of when I grew up. I didn't start with him, obviously, because I wasn't born when he wrote his first books. But now going through them in order is very interesting. So I'm doing that right now. But point being, reading has been the foundational to everything. And about fifth grade is when I started moving from like young adult fiction, let's say like the Farley Mowats and that sort of a thing,
Yeah.
into the kind of books that my parents were reading. Hunt for Red October came out then, and then certainly by sixth grade, I'm reading the same kind of books that I still read and write today. So I'm reading David Morrell's, Nelson DeMille, A.J. Quinnell, J.C. Pollock, Mark Olden, Tom Clancy, Louis L'Amour, like all these guys who were essentially my professors in the art of storytelling. Although I didn't look at it that way then, I just looked at it as escaping into these pages and having a wonderful time in these pages. Also, growing up in the '80s, it's movies and television, and both the books and the films and television back then had protagonists for the most part that had special operations experience in Vietnam. So from Magnum PI to Simon and Simon, well, one of the brothers anyway, the A-Team, Miami Vice, like all these guys had a background and in Vietnam.
Right.
And so as either, like, say, a Navy SEAL, Army Special Forces, Marine sniper, CIA paramilitary, something like that. That was very common, I should say. I shouldn't say everyone, but it was very common. And that allowed them now to solve problems as a private investigator, as a police officer, as whatever they're, a stuntman, or whatever they're doing in 80s television, movies, or books.
Right.
And so I identified with that because from age 7 onward, I wanted to be a SEAL. And even before that, I knew I was going to serve my country in uniform. My grandfather was killed in World War II. He was a Corsair pilot, Marine. So for those listening, it was the plane that had the gull wings that would fold up, fit on the aircraft carriers that way. And there was a TV show called Black Sheep Squadron. It actually came out as Baba Black Sheep, and then it was syndicated as Black Sheep Squadron with Robert Conrad, actor, playing Pappy Boynton, Marine Corps Medal of Honor recipient, and he flew the same plane as my grandfather. So
what AO was he in? Was
he in the Pacific? Yeah.
Okay.
So and in the TV show, like before Facebook, before all these social media in general, your connection really to that generation, if you lost a relative, if like in my case, my dad lost his father, that was through the medium of popular culture. So from movies, and in this case, a TV show called Black Sheep Squadron that had the same plane that my grandfather flew. So I had his medals, I had his wings, I had pictures of him and his squadron, the silk maps that they gave aviators back then, because if you hit the water with a paper map, it would just disintegrate. But silk map just gets wet. You can still use it, obviously. Right. So I had all those of his, and so I think that it was in my DNA anyway to serve and to test myself. But that certainly didn't hurt. Just looking up to him as my hero, and then watching Black Sheep Squadron, reading the book Baba Black Sheep by Pappy Boynton. I got to meet him at an air show back when I was right before he passed away in I think it was 87, 88. Anyway, in the 80s.
That's cool.
And I cut out his obituary and tacked it to my little bulletin board thing in my room as a kid, and so I just always knew I was on that path. And certainly the reading informed all those decisions. Even in sixth grade, we read a short story called "The Most Dangerous Game" by Richard Connell, written in the 1920s. And even in sixth grade, I told myself that one day, after my time in the military, I'd write a thriller that paid tribute to that short story. And that was my third novel, Savage Son. So reading has been foundational to all of it, and not just the fiction. I was also reading the nonfiction, so anything I could find on warfare, particularly special operations, terrorism, growing up in the 80s. That's why the first book in the Targeted series is Beirut, because I remember that happening. I remember the 1979 Iranian hostage crisis. I remember Walter Cronkite counting the days on television. Anything that came across our kitchen table that Time Magazine, Newsweek, New York Times, Washington, Wall Street Journal, and then local paper, anything that had anything to do with the military, I was in there, even at a very early age. Probably didn't understand even half of the things that I'm reading at age 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 time frame.
Is that how old you were in 1979 during the Iranian Revolution?
Yeah, I was 6. Yeah, so I always remember being in.
And you remember paying attention to that stuff back then?
Yeah, I remember going. They marched us over to. I went at a Catholic school at the time, and they marched us to church and talked about it and prayed for the hostages and all that. I remember the whole thing. I remember Walter Cronkite. I remember it being a big deal.
That's interesting. Yeah, because it's funny because like my generation specifically, they didn't have that type of situation, but we had 9/11 because like when I was a sophomore in high school, or sorry, a freshman in high school when that happened in 2001, and I remember like everything that happened during that period of time because it's a very memorable situation that happened. And I remember being in Algebra 2 when the teacher turned on the TV and the towers were hit and all that stuff. I would imagine it's probably similar, that it was like burned singed into your mind the things that were happening during the Iranian Revolution in 1979 because of how seriously impactful that was to the nation, not only for, you know, all of the service members, the Marines that were over there at the embassy, but like all the embassy staff and anybody that was involved in that. That was a pretty big deal, obviously.
I'm still pretty young, but at that time, but those memories are seared in, and I remember, all the anything that had a cover story that had anything to do with the military, I was in on all that stuff. So
Yeah.
the theme, though, throughout all those years, let's say from '79 to say '89 or so, was terrorism. I mean, very clear to me even then. And so seeing TWA 847, seeing the Killy Laurel, so things like that, obviously the Beirut Barracks bombing. So all of those things, Pan Am 103, Lockerbie, Scotland. So all of those things made a significant impact on me. And it was very clear that my generation's fight was going to have something to do with terrorism. And so any books that I could find on it, history of warfare in general, but more specifically terrorism, counterterrorism, insurgencies, counterinsurgencies, anything like that, I was reading. So I was reading the nonfiction side of the house. I was reading the fiction side of the house, and not really for any other reason other than I loved the fiction. And also it sent me down paths on the nonfiction. Read a sentence, let's say in 6th grade, 7th grade, from an author like David Morrell or Nelson DeMille, and I'd say, oh, there's context here, so I understand it because of the context, but I don't really know what they're talking about specifically. What was that? And then go to the library, because my mom's a librarian, look that up, do some research, figure out more about it. So the fiction really also informed my study of history and my interest in history. So all of that was it formed probably the most solid foundation that I could have moving forward into the SEAL teams, and then having the experiences that I did in Iraq and Afghanistan, then being able to build from there to write thrillers myself. So I don't think I could have done it really any better, but I didn't plan it that way. It was really just the love of reading, the love of watching films, the love of studying history, and then building from there. But yeah, all that just all those authors that I was reading, then I can't imagine trying to do that today as a 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader, and having a similar experience just because of all the distractions that are out there for these kids. And not just kids, but adults too.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was, hey, I'm going to read a book. I'm going to have to wait until the movie that I really want to see, like Commando, comes out on Friday, and that's coming out like at 7:15, p.m. I'm going to go with my dad. There's that, or I have to wait till 8, 9, or 10 for one of the TV shows that I want to watch. I can play Atari 2600, but you can't play that for much longer than a half hour before you've either mastered it or you're bored. You can go outside and run around, read. So those were really the options. And now today, these kids are up against, and parents too, and just anybody in general is up against the most powerful companies and corporations in the world that are addicting us to every single app. And then that purpose is to keep us addicted to these things. And I just found out recently, I read a great book by Richard Ryan called The Warrior's Garden, and it talked about how big tech in general uses some of the findings from gambling and from these things to keep you addicted. So there's all these like all the things that are bad for you. They're like using it in these apps and in their algorithms in order to keep people addicted to these phones and these devices. So you're up against that. So I'm stepping into this publishing game at a time when less and less people are reading, hence doing all the things that I can possibly do to create new readers.
The best way you can do that is by leveraging the very thing that they're using to keep people addicted to promote the thing that is healthy for them, which is reading.
Yeah,
that's the very thing you can do.
Yeah, you have to reach people where they are.
Yeah.
So reaching out there and trying to provide something of value throughout the year, because the book's going to come out once a year, maybe twice a year. Right now, maybe it'll be more in the future, but right now it's kind of the cadence. And but throughout the rest of the year, provide something of value through the podcast, through social media posts, through blog, interviews, interactions, all those sorts of things. So but all that being said, I'd much rather be back in 1985.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I sometimes think about that myself too, because it's like there's so much noise. There's so much noise all the time. Like it's like going from living in the country to living in a big city, because like in the country, you can hear the birds chirping, you can hear like the animals moving around, you hear the wind blowing through the grass, like you can take it in. It's relatively peaceful and serene. You get into a big city, you're hearing ambulances, fire engines, police cruisers, people talking, like noise, stuff like brake dust floating up, and so that's kind of like how I look at social media now before, like compared to the way it was before there was social media. Like, people spent more time outside. They spent more time interacting with each other face to face. They spent more time doing things like getting out hiking, going out fishing, going out doing things. And now they spend more time watching other people do those things instead, because it's easier. You get the dopamine hit from being able to enjoy that thing or whatever it is without actually having to go do it. And that's good and bad, because like it's brought a lot of people together, so it's easy to access people, and it's easy to stay connected with your friends. It's easy to stay connected with your family, and it's easy to engage with each other, because you can do it instantly over the internet rather than having to travel a long distance or give people a call on the rotary phone or whatever it is. But at the same time, like you said, these apps and everything definitely are leveraging the things that they can to keep you engaged and addicted and on the app and using it. Because I mean, like there is tons of research that they use in software development to like make these things work in a way that keeps people on there, because ultimately it comes back down to what's driving sales, what's making people money. And like as soon as you can make money on social media, then people are like, okay, well, we're going to invest a lot in this to figure out how to make more money off of it. And it's probably one of the most powerful advertising tools on planet Earth now, because nobody's watching TV. Nobody's watching your commercial on TV. They're watching your commercial in ads on YouTube. They're watching your ads on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, on all these other things, right? Or maybe on the radio, depending on it, or if they're on a podcast or something like that, So like that's like you said, you got to meet people where they are, and they happen to be on these apps on their phone a lot of the time. So that's you have to take the fight to wherever the fight is.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's overall, I think it's a net negative for society in general. But you can only do so much. So I just try to do what I can with what I have.
That's it. That's it, man. I mean, at the end of the day, like, look, the way I look at it is like, I feel like, yes, I personally feel that there's a lot of positives if we could go back to like 1985, 86 when I was born, to like bring people back together, doing stuff in person, doing things outside. I think overall it's healthier for the human brain. I genuinely do. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I can't change that. There's nothing I can change. But what I can do is at least put out information that has a positive impact on society, whether it be just conversations between people, whether it be providing them with information that's nonpartisan, or that's just like, hey, this is like a non-biased like perspective of like something that's transpiring. Teaching people things, I think, is valuable. And if you can provide something of value to people, that's not just brain rot TikTok dances, I think that at least you're doing something to contribute to society that's positive in nature. And so that's kind of like how I've tried to leverage social media. And it's taken me time to get there, because I started out just reposting content that I thought was cool, like military related stuff and things that I thought that were cool that were happening around the world, to like keep people informed, or doing my reaction to something else that happened. And now it's like I like to talk about, hey, here's something that's going on, and providing a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more feedback. I like talking to people, doing these interviews. Podcasting, I think, is so valuable. Talking about things that are interesting, talking about history, talking about, whatever, anything that I think is beneficial to human beings or humanity or society in general, and encouraging activities that are healthy in nature on podcasts, to meet people where they're at, like you said. I think all that stuff is beneficial. And like at the end of the day, nobody is going to stop putting content out there at this point. The box is open. The Pandora's box is open. It's not getting shut. So at least what we can do is contribute to it in a positive, constructional, or what's it called? Constructive way. A constructive way.
Yeah. I try to be thoughtful. That's when I looked into it, because I looked at social media for about a year before I stepped into it, because I never wanted anything to do with it. Because in the early days, if you had a social media profile, it was a negative in special operations, meaning like it could keep you from doing certain things. But now the red flag is, and for the last, I guess, maybe decade now, if you don't have a social media profile, then that's the red flag. So it's totally morphed. And with facial recognition, of course, out there, it's very difficult going forward to do certain things, going to certain countries, let's say under alias or something like that. If as a kid you're already out there for the first 18 years of your life, you're out there with your face as so
Yeah.
and so, and then now you're here going into country X under alias as somebody else. Well, that's difficult.
You know what that reminds me of is when they accidentally leaked the photos of the Delta Force guys in
I didn't see it.
Israel. You remember seeing
Oh, I
that?
don't remember that one.
Yeah, I think it was President Biden at the time that he was I think he was visiting Israel. I want to say it was
Oh,
Israel. I
I
might
vaguely
be
remember
mistaken.
this.
Somebody jacked it up and accidentally
Oh, I do
leaked the
remember this now.
faces of the
Something.
Delta dudes.
Remember the headline anyway.
And it was I mean everybody saw it online and I was like, "Oh Jesus." Like
And they took it down, right, or something, but
they
it's
took
already
it
out
down.
there.
I don't think that necessarily is going to prevent those guys from continuing operating. I don't think at the end of the day anybody's really going to care. They're already
Well,
they've invested so much time, energy, and money into these guys at this point. But I'm
well, it can certainly keep you from doing some things.
it could definitely keep you from doing some things for sure. But it was just a big mess up.
Yeah.
It was a big boo boo.
I do remember this now. Yeah, I do remember this now.
Yeah.
I guess I try to block out a lot of the negatives.
I know.
You know?
I know. It is
I feel like that's happening more and more the older I get. Is I'm like, what? And then I tried to block that out because it was unpleasant or it was a negative. But hey, what can you do?
Yeah.
But
well, Joe Rogan has a good stance. He's like he talks about the post and ghost method.
He tells me that all the time.
Yeah.
And, I just saw him at UFC on last Saturday, so a week ago.
Yeah.
And he tells me that all the time. And I just have such a hard time doing that now. One, because I'm up against that. I mean, it gets me too. I go in there to just do a quick post, but it gets you. Like,
it pulls you in.
Oh, dang it! What did I come here for? Oh yeah, to do that post I was going to do really quickly.
Yeah.
So I got to get better at that. Or send them to somebody else, have somebody else do it, so I don't even, there's not the opportunity for it to grab me.
Yeah.
That's probably the next step. But I also genuinely like to thank people on there. So people that are engaging with me, I really appreciate it. And so I try to just take that time to hit that hard or say thank you, especially if they say, hey, I got the book and loved it. I hit the little heart button thingy and then I say, hey, thank you or something.
Yeah.
Because I really do appreciate it. But then, it gets harder and harder to do that. And then you see the negative stuff too. You're trying to do that. And then you see all the other stuff and you're like,
all the bots
and then
that are infesting your comments.
Well, you
section.
see that because some of those are what those are, but then you just see like just people that are just unpleasant.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of unhappy people out there, man.
And this is their vent because back in the day, once again, a common theme with me is going back in time.
Yeah,
that's like, who are these people going to complain to?
Yeah,
like a spouse.
Who's going to listen to
Or
them?
if that spouse has already left them, they're just going to yell at a TV maybe or a newspaper. But now they get to direct connect to different people.
Direct line of communication with Jack Carr.
Exactly.
Yeah, or
exactly.
whoever.
Or whoever. Exactly. Yeah. And you see it,
Yeah.
Even like the biggest celebrities in the world that are online, a lot of them aren't, but some of the ones that are, they see that stuff and it does affect you. It does, everybody, we're all people. And it takes up a little bit of bandwidth, and that bandwidth should be going into the books, but instead it's a little bit it gets you and I couldn't even tell you one of them right now. But in the moment, it takes up that bandwidth, and you're like,
yeah. And it took away a bit of your time, which is the most valuable resource that you have.
Exactly.
And it took time away from you.
Yeah.
That's another thing that Joe mentioned on some previous podcasts. I'm a huge habitual listener of his, by the way.
Nice. He's
I've
great.
been listening to him for like 5-6 years.
He's fantastic.
One of the things he calls people is time thieves.
Time thieves.
Time
I
thieves.
know.
They steal your time from you, even if it's like through a comment like that.
I know.
And they just pull it away from you. And it's like, I can't let these people steal from me. It's theft. Yeah. It's like, it's not illegal because they're not actually physically stealing something, but it's actually more valuable than taking an item. It's taking your time, which is more valuable. It's actually, there's no value on it because you only have so much of it.
Yeah. Eventually I have to give up looking at those things at all, I think.
Yeah. You get like a social media manager that can do it for you. But then it's like,
you lose the connect.
Yeah, you lose the connectivity. And I get that piece
People
too.
come through on book tour all the time and make comments about, hey, you liked this post, or you said this to me, and it really meant something. And and that, so I try to make somebody's day. I tell my kids never miss an opportunity to make somebody's day.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that because I hear it so much on book tour.
Yeah.
Book tour is really, really powerful. I didn't really expect it to be that way, I guess. I didn't really think too much about it, but you really can have an impact on people's lives.
Of course.
You see it firsthand. You can see, on online, on the social channels, you can see it a little bit, but when someone comes up to you and shakes your hand and you look them in the eye and they tell you a story, and it's impactful.
Those moments are so valuable. And it reminds me, so when I flew in here, I had people recognize me at the airport when I was leaving to come out here. And then I had people recognize me at the airport when I got here and came up to me and said, dude, I really appreciate your content.
Nice.
And every time that happens, I always make sure that I take the time to give them, like, to tell them that I really
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
them coming to
absolutely.
tell me, because it does mean a lot. Because, and
Absolutely.
I don't get those interactions with people online because
Mhm.
unfortunately my comment sections are because I talk about a lot of current events, current affairs
Mm.
and stuff. I have a lot of adversarial governments
Oh.
that are sending bot armies at me to
Oh,
like
geez.
drive narratives in my comment
Oh,
section.
wow.
And I know for a fact that's what's happening. It's
Oh,
like, we're
wow.
not stupid. We know what you're doing, and there's a lot of, yeah, we know what you're doing. Like, but you don't, I try to stay out of the comment sections for similar reasons that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
stay out, because it's not great for mental health. There's a lot of nonsense, a lot of time thieves, a lot of people saying like not pleasant things.
Mhm.
And I get it. Like, it's free country, you say whatever you want. But I also do like interacting with people, and I like having those constructive feedbacks and those constructive conversations where they're able to, like, hey, be like, hey, look, like, what you did really impacted some decisions that I made in my
Yeah.
life, and I decided to join the Marine Corps, or join the Navy, or join the Air Force, or the Army, or the Coast Guard, or whatever. And like, that stuff means so much to me, because I can't, there's no way for me to know how I'm impacting people if I'm not in the comment
Right.
sections, like, engaging, or in the DMs engaging.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that stuff, and I try to make sure that anytime that happens, I take the time to thank them and say, you know what, I really appreciate you coming and telling me that, because,
Yeah.
like, I like to know that I'm having some kind of a positive impact on people, even if it's just one person.
Yeah.
That makes the difference for me, because it's like, okay, so I should keep going then, because this is doing something good for somebody, or
Yeah.
providing something of value to somebody, and
Yeah.
that means a lot to me, because, like, at the end of the day, like, this stuff is cool. Like, yeah, you can make money on it. Sure, you can advertise with it. You can raise awareness about things that are important. But at the end of the day, it's about, like, how you can impact people, how you can influence people in a positive way, and, like, and I like to help people. I want to know that I'm being of use to
Yeah.
somebody other than just myself, and that's really got the intrinsic value piece for me with social media. And I
Yeah.
think I think you probably relate with the book tours, like, when you meet people and they're shaking your hand, they look in you in the eye and saying, I
Yeah.
really appreciate what you've done for society and for us and for the writing community, the author community. And it's just so valuable,
Yeah, so and I knew this would happen eventually, but the first time it did happen, it still got me even though I was prepared for it, meaning so my first book came out in 2018. That means if somebody read it when they were 15, 16, 17, 18, by the time the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th book comes out, they could have, gone to college, or they could have joined the military, or they
Yeah.
could have joined police department, or whatever that is, and that started to happen a couple of years ago. People came through and said, "Hey, I joined the military because of you or your books or something you said or whatever
Yeah.
else." And I knew that because it happened with me. The power of popular culture, all those books that I read that we talked about, all those movies that I saw we talked about, in the TV shows, those things impacted me and were a driver. Even though I think it was in my DNA. I think even without them, even without if there weren't books and if there wasn't television and if wasn't any movies, I would still have wanted to join whatever it was called at the time, to protect the tribe, to protect the community, to protect society, whatever it was. I think I was just in me inherently,
Yeah.
but it certainly didn't hurt that I saw The Frogman, which is an old black and white film, which is how I found out about seals, which led me to the library with my mom to do research into what seals were and UDT and what they did in World War II and Korea and Vietnam. And most of it was on Vietnam at the time in the early 80s that I could find, even though there wasn't much of it. You could find the end of the internet
Yeah.
back then. You could go to the end of that library
The all the
shelf,
way to the
and that
end.
was the end of the internet. You could read everything possible written about seals in the early 80s. Of course, now you couldn't possibly do it with all the information online,
Yeah.
which is also a problem, because you can study now how to do something essentially indefinitely. So let's say you want to be an author, and back then you could maybe hit a few books out there that gave you some tips, and then you have to dive in, because
Yeah.
now you've exhausted everything that you could find on how to write a book, something
Sure.
like that. Now you can study it forever and
For
never take the step and actually do it.
Yeah.
So eventually, you've got to put those things aside and just do it. You can study how to do something for a certain amount of time, and then you've just got to stop and just do the thing.
That's so valuable though too, because a lot of people, it's like, think about this. If you're trying to learn how to be a pottery maker, like, you could read all the books on pottery making that you want, but
Mm.
until you're doing it and actually grabbing the
Yeah,
clay and making it with your hands,
yeah, yeah,
you're not really gonna be learning it. Or you could read books on how to fix a car, but if you're not actually fixing a car, how are you
sure.
gonna learn how to fix a car?
Yeah,
You know?
all these things, you can study them forever. So that's a danger of all having all of this information out there, is that you study so much of it, you never get to do the thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't really read too many books I read Stephen King's on writing. I read David Morrell's The Successful Novelist. I read read Stephen Pressfield's books on the time on creativity. So we had maybe 2 or 3 out at the time. Now there's more. Now there's probably 6 or 7 of those out there now. And I've read all of them. They're fantastic, super, super thin. You can read them in an afternoon. So I
Okay.
read those, and then it was off to the races.
And when did you actually start writing?
December of 2014, I first put pen to paper, fingers to the keyboard on the terminal list. So
Were
I
you
had about
already
a
out
year.
of the
No, I
Navy?
had about a year and a half left in, but I knew I was getting out.
Okay.
And so I hadn't quite dropped my papers yet, but I mean, I knew when I got back from Iraq at the end of 2011, I knew that I was going to get out because that was the end of my tactical leadership time.
Okay.
And I knew that's what I was good at. And I'm not good at the administrative stuff.
Oh
And so
man,
sometimes
that is a that is
sometimes
a
it's good.
slog.
That's why it's good to know your strengths and weaknesses. And I didn't want to spend the rest of my life trying to be good at those things. That wasn't my. I just very clear to me like what I'm good at and what I'm not.
Yeah.
And so my tactical leadership time had come to an end. I had a few more years left in. I was going to the training command at Buds. Our SEAL training command is the operations
In
officer.
Coronado?
Yeah, exactly. Which
You were the
actually,
OPSO over there.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Which means that you have some time on your hands because it's push-ups, it's sit-ups. You have an officer and a senior enlisted in charge of every phase of training. Those guys
Yeah.
know what they're doing. Hasn't changed much over the years, so it's very different, I think, than being an OPSO at like a team or another type of command that's actually going downrange.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
makes
and
sense.
that was actually the first time I could take a breath and think about what I'm gonna. I mean, I always knew I was gonna write after my time in the teams, but I didn't spend time thinking about that while I was in. I was
Yeah.
all focused on the job and being a better operator and a leader today than I was yesterday. I'm still reading all the books that I loved reading, and also reading all the nonfiction as well, trying to make myself so I could be as informed as I possibly could. Because I didn't want to, once again, power of popular culture. I didn't want to be that guy that I saw on TV and in film and in books growing up that was stewing on and reliving something that happened most of the time in Vietnam in those days in the 80s in those books that I was reading. Could I have made a better decision? Could I have made a different decision? Did someone die because of my decision that I made? Those sorts of things. And that's the portrayal that you saw of a lot of Vietnam veterans. That was like the B storyline in
Yeah.
a lot of these TV shows and movies and books. So I didn't want to be that person. So I always wanted to make sure that I spent every single possible second doing the things that would make me the best leader and operator downrange so that even if things went sideways, I knew that it wasn't because I didn't put in the sweat equity at home, that I didn't put in that sweat equity in training. So it's and that's I think that paid off because I think the pendulum was definitely on the side of the team and not the family.
Yeah.
And that's something that I talked to my wife about because it has to be that way. I think
Yeah.
people talk about balance and this, and they have all these family readiness stuff or whatever. I don't. It has to be on the team. That's what you owe those guys to your right and left. That's what you owe their families. That's what you ultimately owe the mission and the country. And then maybe when you're out, it can swing back towards your own family.
Yeah.
But if you're taking guys downrange, if that's the responsibility you've stepped up to, that's where the pendulum has to be.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's where it was. So, but the power of popular culture that helped, seeing that and not wanting to be that guy, and so putting in that time. So even on the weekends, going out shooting, somebody's coming through Southern California, and I'm in Coronado, and they're let's say a Larry Vickers or somebody's coming through and doing a shooting course. Well, bam, I'm there on my own dime doing that because I want to make sure that I'm at the top of my game, working out, reading anything I possibly can about Iraq, Afghanistan, the enemy, the culture, whatever it might be. It's going to make me the best leader operator I can be. So, and all that stuff actually informs the novels now. All
Yeah.
that preparation and all those foundational elements inform what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that definitely, I mean, the amount of deep diving that you have done with everything prior, like whether it was while you were in service, like the reading that you were doing, the studying you're doing, and then all of your experiences have like all of that information and all that knowledge, kind of like helps amplify the deep level of detail in the work that you do
Yeah.
in the writing and stuff, which that like again that like if you want to pull people into a book, especially in today's day and age where like everyone's attention span is roughly 3 to 5 seconds, like you've got to have some serious
It's so
stuff
brutal.
like to pull people in, like the gritty, like the detail that's like the finer stuff that's like really visceral, like that stuff. You got to have that because like I don't know how else you're going to rip people away from their phone to like long enough to look at a page.
I know it's tough. The audiobooks I think are kind of a gateway. I'm like they give me hope. especially with my kids. Like I read to my kids every single night when they were little,
Yeah.
and they essentially have no interest in reading now.
Of
But I did
course.
all the things like my parents did. I mean, I'm an author. There's books everywhere in our house, and it didn't have the same impact, on them as it did me. Once again, I think because we're up against these other corporations here,
Yeah.
and it's just yeah, it's very difficult to compete
Now for
against
your
those things. But
audiobooks, did you read them?
no, 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 no. I have luckily I have an amazing narrator, Ray Porter, incredible guy, and I didn't really think too much about audio as I stepped in because I'm a reader. I have to like read a book, and I don't read them on a screen either because I feel like business stuff and all that is on a screen, and
Okay.
I don't want what I do for pleasure to also be on that same through that same medium that I'm
Okay.
doing work on. So
Yeah.
I like that be able to disassociate. So I
That's
read
fair.
physical books. But the audiobooks are so popular, the fastest growing segment of publishing across the board. Um, but I didn't think about that ahead of time. When Simon and Schuster in the lead up to the first book sent me a sample, they said, "Hey, we think this would be a good narrator for your book." And I listened to it and I'm like, "Oh, I don't think so, but I haven't sold a book yet. Can I push back? I know nothing about publishing."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Can I just ask for somebody else, or how am I going to do this?" And I said, "I don't think this is quite the right person. Can I pick somebody else?" And they said, "Sure, but let us know by the end of the day." And it was like Friday, and publishing, they take their weekends very seriously, holidays very seriously, type of a thing. So I'm like, "Oh, geez." So I went on Audible or whatever, and I clicked those samples. I just started listening to books, boom, 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 and then I found it. I think it was through a nonfiction that he'd done, but I found this guy Ray Porter, and I was like, "Oh, wait a sec." And I started listening to the samples of other books that he'd done, fictional ones, and I'm like, okay, maybe Ray Porter. And I had no idea that he was or at the top of the pyramid when it comes to narrators. I
Really?
had no idea. It was totally random that I had found him just by listening sample after sample after sample. But he really, his voice really stood out to me, especially for this kind of a book. And so I wrote back to Simon and Schuster and I said, "Hey, can we ask Ray Porter?" And they're like, "Well, sure, if he'll do it." And that's kind of
If
like,
he'll do it,
I'm
because
like,
he's
"All
like the
right," because
pinnacle
he's like the
of
best.
voiceover
Yeah,
guy.
he's the best. And I was like, "All right." And of course, he said yes, and now we're dear friends. The first book was up for audiobook of the year, and we
Oh,
got to
wow.
meet up in New York in the tuxes or the suits or whatever we wore, and had a great time out there. But we're dear friends now and talk all the time. And he's in the middle of finishing up. I think he has like 2 days left of narrating Cry Havoc. So a couple samples of that'll be out here in the next couple weeks. I put them up on my podcast, like the prologue and the first chapter,
Yeah.
just to give people an intro to the whole thing. But Ray's amazing and also such a good person. So it's fantastic. But my point is that my hope is that the audiobooks are kind of the gateway drug to
Yeah.
reading to bring people back to something like this and away from the phones because podcasting and podcasts are so popular now and they're growing, of course, as you know, and in popularity and how much they're being listened to and
Yeah.
all of that. But hearing about a book on a podcast, I think it's very natural then to make that transition to listening to it through the same medium on an audiobook.
Sure.
So I think that might be the gateway drug, and I think that's why the audio segment of publishing is the fastest growing segment. So the audiobooks give me hope.
Yeah. I mean, you might be right. I think that if there's going to be an easier transition, it'd probably be easier for people to transition from social media to an audible or audio book than transitioning from their phone to a book,
Yeah,
because then it's like, okay, well, I'm already listening to this thing. Well, maybe I should just check the book out and take a second. I think the big thing that's good about like reading books now as opposed to even before social media is the fact that it's a genuine break. I think that's the one thing that I've always like. I don't read a lot of books because I don't have a lot of time to anymore. But the one thing I do recall that's probably been the most powerful piece about reading books is that you are transported to an alternate reality separate from the life that you're currently living, and then
sure.
you are like in it. And it's almost like a vacation mentally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and more than that, it's you're learning about other people, even in the fictional realm. You're learning about other people, their struggles. It can be extremely powerful,
Yeah,
especially when it comes to developing an empathy for others and an
sure.
understanding of others, compassion. A lot of these things come through a world of fiction,
Yeah,
through thrillers, even.
yeah.
So it can be extremely powerful.
Yeah, I think the last book I read was The Last Stand of Fox Company. I'm sure you probably read
I
that.
don't know that one.
The Last Stand of Fox Company is a book about um, 2-7 when they were in Korea defending the Chosin
Oh,
Reservoir.
okay.
Um, I would if
I'll
you I
check
know
it
you've
out.
got a million books out there to read. Highly encourage that one if you have time because it is one of the most visceral
Okay.
books I've read on any type of combat war stuff ever. Of the old breed, I'm sure you've probably read it
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Eugene Sledge.
Yeah,
Everybody's
I've read
read
that.
that one, but definitely the Last Stand of Fox Company is unbelievable. Like it just literally talks about the 27 Fox Company in Korea, and they like how their attrition rate was, the number of casualties, the number of fatalities they had, the absolutely gritty, visceral, carnal violence that they encountered every day on the sides of these mountains out there, and the freezing cold temperatures, the lack of good food, the lack of good equipment, the lack of warmth, and just like the odds that they faced over there. It was a pretty incredible book. But that's the
Yeah.
last book I've read,
Well,
just
reading
because
books
I've been
like
so
that
busy.
definitely helped me through buds,
Yeah.
because so I'm out there Hell Week. People are quitting in droves. You're doing push-ups, and you're going in the surf zone. You're on the verge of hypothermia.
Oh,
And I
Jesus,
thought
yeah.
back, I'm like, you know what? I'm not storming the beaches of Normandy. I'm not Iwo Jima. Um, I'm essentially doing the thing that those guys fought, and many of them died. So that I would have the opportunity to do this,
Yeah.
to follow my dream here into the SEAL teams. Like, you know what, I can do a few more push-ups. I can handle this a little bit longer. So I put it in relative terms. So a lot of those books also help out just going through buds or ranger school or q course or boot camp or whatever it might be, anything in life, being able to put things in relative terms, because
Yeah.
if the hardest thing that's ever happened is that you failed a test, like that is the hardest thing you've ever done before, the greatest thing that you've ever encountered. And but really, you're not storming the beaches of Normandy.
Yeah.
And speaking of, I feel so fortunate. I got to, with my daughter, through the Best Defense Foundation, take World War II veterans back to Normandy. She went to the Netherlands to Market Garden last year. We've
Wow.
gone to Pearl Harbor with the Best Defense Foundation. So she's got to hear these stories from World War II veterans themselves, sitting in an old Army Jeep on the beach in Normandy and hearing the story from someone who points out where he came out of his landing craft, where he went on the cliff, where the Nazi machine gun positions were established above them, and she got to hear that from him, and she's gotten to do that multiple times now over the last few years.
That is
And
so
so
cool.
yeah, so getting to hear it from them is just a different thing than reading it.
Yeah.
But in the absence of being able to talk to a veteran like that, reading these books, watching these movies, documentaries, whatever it might be, certainly can help you in normal everyday life as well, because it helps you put things in relative terms.
Yeah, I mean,
And
over
appreciation, also
yeah, oh, for
appreciation.
sure.
You get to appreciate what was sacrificed so that we could do this here,
Yeah,
or you out there could do whatever it is that you want to do
yeah.
because of these people who stepped up in the past.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of those guys, they overcame huge levels of adversity, and everybody has different varying levels of adversity in their life depending on what
Yeah.
occupation they have, what they're trying to do, what their goals are, where they're at in life, and hearing other people's stories of overcoming adversity helps us realize, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, big
If
time.
they can do that, if they can storm the beaches of Normandy
Yeah.
while they're under heavy machine gun
Yeah.
fire and there's people dying all around them and
Right.
there's mortars exploding, I can do this other thing
Right.
that's not even remotely dangerous. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Because the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. The
Yeah.
hardest thing that you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done. It's all based on perspective and based on like the individual and what your perceptions of reality are and like your experiences. But like building resiliency and learning how to overcome adversity is not, I don't think, something that you can teach people. They just have to learn it through trial and error and through action. Like you're
Yeah.
talking about, like how to become a good author. Well, you start writing. How to become a good like a good saxophone player. Well, you play the saxophone. And I think the same thing could be said. Like there's a lot of translations between like reading and listening to the stories that people are telling about overcoming adversity, and then being able to apply that to your personal life,
Yeah.
in whatever you've got going on, regardless of what your occupation is or what your goals or social status are.
Yeah,
Um,
and you gotta love it too. You gotta be like a fan. I think it's like me being a fan of these books and these authors growing up in film and television, and like Quentin Tarantino never went to film school, but he's a fan of
Crushing it.
film, right?
Crushing it.
I mean, his books are great on it. I love he has a book that came out about his his favorite films a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of autobiographical and but it's a love of film, and it's watching those films and then researching those films, but all on his own from the fan perspective,
Yeah.
and that allowed him to do what he's doing now. And it's very similar to this, and that I didn't I didn't study it essentially, except for those couple books that I read that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And But I read, and I had read without interruption, without the phone growing up. So I had this extremely solid foundation, but from the fan perspective. So
Yeah.
I knew what I liked. I knew the history of the genre, even though I wasn't studying it. I still knew it because I was a part of it as a reader
Right.
from the earliest days. I think it'd be very different to go back today and say, you know what, I'm going to wake up at, let's say, age 42, and I'm going, which is not what I am right now.
Right.
But so if I was going to get out of the military at 42,
Sure.
and I wanted to be an author, and think back, what should I have been reading now for the past 30 years of my life in order to prepare me for this?
Yeah.
And then to go back and do it when you have a family, you have kids, you have mortgage, you have car payments, you have to figure out what you're going to transition to outside of the military in order to provide for all these people who depend on you. And we have these distractions today. So all of those things make it very difficult, I think, to go back. And it would be a very different reading experience to go back and read let's say the Ludlums, and read the David Morrells, and read the Nelson DeMilles, let's say, of the let's say the late 70s into the 80s, with this sort of that with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
Because you're reading these books and you have the distractions, but you're not in the moment. They're not contemporary thrillers at the time. They were at the time, but now when you're reading them 30 years later, they are not anymore. You're looking at this, they're essentially a time machine back to the time in which they were written.
Right.
And it's just a different reading experience, because now you have these 30 years of your own experience that you're bringing to these books. But if you read them at age 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, during those very formative years, that's a different reading experience. I think it gets imprinted on you differently than if
Yeah.
you're trying to read something like, oh, I should read The Hunt for Red October. It's part of this, it's part of the history of the thriller. Okay. And I'm going to try to do this. And I'm 42 and I have to go pick my kid up in a little bit here. But, okay, I'm going to read this thing. Okay. Yeah. Some phones buzzing. Oh, I'm interrupted. Okay. It's different than if
Yeah.
you're reading that back in the 80s, when it's essentially a contemporary thriller. Once again, I'm not trying to discourage anyone.
Yeah.
But I say that reading, if you're not reading now, start.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing about it. It's like anything else really in life. Like if you're not doing something, it's never too late to just start doing it. Like if you've never played the piano before, but you'd like to learn how to play the piano, well, you can go ahead and just start. Go get piano lessons. Go sign up for a class. Maybe it's never too late to do these things. Like even podcasting. Like I know that a lot of people are like, oh, the market's so oversaturated. Well, I mean, if you want to do it, go start doing it. Like
They said that from the very beginning, though. Like
yeah.
oversaturated.
Yeah, but it'd be
Yeah.
different. It'd be different, like if you started back when it first came
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
course, it's going to
Of
be a lot
course.
different.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can't start doing it now if you want. If that's
Yeah.
something you feel passionate about or something you feel compelled to do, go do it. It's still better than action is always better than inaction. Even if it's just something that's a
Oh, yeah.
subtle action, at least that's kind of how I live my life. And it may not always be the perfect action, but at least
Yeah.
it's something. You're doing something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I don't know. For some reason, it always reminds me of the concept of when it goes back, when you think of fitness, for example, like a body in motion is better than a body that's not in motion, that's standing still. Like even if you're doing a little bit of something, like going for a walk, it's still better than not doing
Yeah.
any type of physical activity, and you just
That's
have to
right,
take
too.
that action and be proactive and
Yeah.
and be constant and consistent with that kind of thing. But
That's what you need to get better at. I haven't found how to balance yet. I know we talked about that earlier. I haven't found the balance, because last summer, I was in the worst shape of my life, because I'd just been grinding for all the previous 6, 7 years with the books.
Yeah.
Everything I could possibly do was all about either family or building a readership and writing the books. And I got to last summer, I'm like, oh, this is not good. And so I got home like say early August, and then I started working out again.
That's
And
awesome.
I've got like probably the best shape of my life. And the reason that I didn't do it for all those years, I think, is because I was like, I know what I need to do, and it's very difficult, but it's what I did in the SEAL teams type of a thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not that guy anymore. Like I'm not. I realize I'm not taking guys downrange to Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't need to be like doing these things like that. I just need to be like in good shape to be able to like hang out with the kids or go on a hunt or whatever else, like normal stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't need to do those crazy, insane, like not even like functional fitness workout coupled with some crazy endurance thing that's going to take me 5 hours, whatever. Like, I don't need to do that anymore. I can just do like something normal. And
Yeah.
so I started doing something, semi-normal, and probably got in the best shape of my life by January. And I was like, oh, I don't have a book yet. And so I'll stop, and it was due like last month. And so I'm like, okay. And so I stopped, 100% stopped, dove in on Cry Havoc, which is the one that comes out in October,
Yeah.
which was a different writing experience because it takes place in 1968. And at
Yeah.
the time I thought, you know what? This is going to be a lot easier than the other books because I think I know so much about Vietnam, and I've been watching these movies and films and documentaries and reading books about Vietnam my whole life. And so in my head, I was like, this is going to be essentially a more efficient book to write. And some of the other ones, like Red Sky Mourning, uh, studying this like satellites and this thing called the Kessler effect, which is satellites essentially creating a debris field that doesn't allow other satellites to get up into high orbit and all these things and these geopolitical conspiracies. So that took a lot out of me. Another one, book on AI that I had, took a lot out of me. The finance section of a book, I think it was Only the Dead. That one, just writing like 2 chapters on finance and wealth creation. I think I'm still exhausted from all the research that went into that one.
Jesus.
The bioweapons and bioweapons research and bioweapons defense for my fourth novel, The Devil's Hand. I knew nothing about that in the military, so I had to do a ton of research into that. So, point being, all these things in the books that I don't know anything about, I go so deep into, and it's been exhausting to do that.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, Vietnam. I know this. I know this period in history. This will be much more efficient.
Surely I'll be able to do this much faster.
No, that was not the case at all, because I have to write every single character and every single sentence through the lens of 1968, meaning I'm not going to have 50 plus years of hindsight applied to these characters and their discussions and their perspective on certain events. I can only have that character from whenever they were born up until 1968, and they have to view the world and this particular event through that lens, through that prism.
Wow.
And I'm looking at things from a GRU perspective. One guy younger who missed World War II, and that's Soviet GRU intelligence service,
Yeah.
and then someone who lived through World War II, and they have different perspectives, but they're both Soviet, they're both in the GRU, but I have to have these different perspectives. Same thing, people in the United States, people that are of different ages, so they have different
Yeah.
life experiences. People downrange now in Vietnam, like what are theirs? So that took a lot more effort than I thought at the outset, and hence why we're having the book come out in October rather than June as it was previously scheduled. So it's
That's something
it's been a lot.
I would never have considered that though. Like to think about something down to that level,
Oh yeah,
as to like, hey, I want to portray this from the lens of somebody that's only experienced life up to that point.
yeah,
Like, and then you have to like transport yourself and all of your information in your brain that you've
yeah.
accumulated over your life. You can't use that information
Nope,
because that's not going to be what they're going to view it as a
exactly.
character. So that is like an immense amount of
Yeah,
like thought processes that goes into that to figure out, okay, so how am I going to shape this character's view on life at that given time
yep,
in history? Like that is a huge thing that most people it wouldn't occur to them. It wouldn't
uh,
have occurred to me to think of that.
yeah,
So the fact that you took the time and the the diligence and the energy and the focus on that, that just makes it that much more immersive for people,
yep.
you know,
Exactly. And
which I
people are
think is
trusting. We
valuable.
talked about time earlier, and people are trusting me with that time. They're never going to get it back, whether they're reading, whether they're listening to the book, whether they're listening to me on a podcast, whether
Yeah.
they're reading a social media post, reading the blog. That is time that they're never getting back. So that's something that I take extremely seriously. And part of the reason probably why I put my heart and soul into every single word in every one of these books, but not just the books, it's every single post on social channels. It's every single blog. It's anything. It has to have my heart and soul go all into it because I have such immense respect for the readership or for the audience that I just can't do anything less.
Yeah.
So the book definitely took a lot more out of me. I mean, I think that who knows what someone else would have done, but maybe play a little, hey, they're listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival, and and now it's just a thriller. but I really wanted to do something more than that, and it became essentially historical fiction. And I didn't anticipate that at the outset. And I learned a lot about Vietnam. I learned a lot about different countries' perspectives on it, and just things that I didn't know. So I discovered a lot more than I thought I was at the outset. But I think it's the best book yet, and that's always the goal. It's always to have the book that's like I want the next book to be better than Cry Havoc.
Yeah.
And my goal has always been, and I think it's been that way so far for me. People ask me my favorite book, and it's always been the one that I just finished. So last year, if we were having this conversation, 100% Red Sky Mourning, right over there, my favorite book because it's the latest one. I think it's better than the one before it. So I always want to get better. Every single book. Same thing with the TV show. We're always looking at lessons from the previous one and how we're going to apply those lessons to the one that we're working on right now, and how we're going to apply the lessons from the one we're working on now to the one that's coming next.
So what's the one that's so I watched as soon as the Terminal List came out on Amazon, I binged the entire thing with my wife. Loved it. We both loved it. Huge
awesome.
fans.
Thank you.
After that, like that season would you call it a season?
Yep.
So that after that season, the next one hasn't started yet.
Nope. Comes out on Thursday? Next Wednesday. The 27th.
The 27th of
August is a prequel. So we got to the end of the Terminal List, and you wait for a couple of weeks, you get the data. We don't really get the data though. They'll never give us the data. Amazon will never share it.
Not.
But that it did very well because of how happy they are.
Okay. So they're like, we'll do
they
more
want
with
more.
you.
Yes. So you know that it did very well. But a star like Chris Pratt is booked out for like 3 years in advance. So you have that to deal with.
3 years. I can't imagine being booked out for 3 years.
Yeah, essentially.
That's crazy.
And so Chris called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about doing a spinoff?" And I'd already penned a spinoff, like say an executive summary of a possible spinoff, and something we could do in the interim, and something I wanted to do anyway, and was probably going to write about. And so I had that, and I was like, "Oh, Chris, that's a great idea." And he said, "What do you think about a Ben Edwards spinoff?" Which was not what I had written this spinoff idea for. And I said, "Chris, that's a fantastic idea. Let's do it." And then he called the other EPs and called Taylor Kitsch and wanted to see if he was on board.
Taylor Kitsch is awesome, man.
Amazing. Such a good dude.
They're both those guys are awesome human beings.
He's such a great guy. And he was all in. And so then you get into the negotiations with Amazon or whatever, and then we put a little team together with me, David DiGilio, the showrunner, Jared Shaw, buddy from the SEAL teams, Max Adams, who's an Army Ranger. So the four of us got together and came up with this idea for this Ben Edwards spinoff, pitched it at the end of October. Yeah, pitched it to Amazon at the end of October of 2022. And 100% right out of the gate, thumbs up. So that and True Believer, which is my second book. So start putting the writer's room together and then announce it in January of 2023. And then start with the writer's room, and then the writer's strike hits. Because people are always asking me, why is it taking so long? And once again, there's these devices that make people just not do any like research or think about it for a second.
Yeah.
So there was I think it was about 7 months, writer's strike, and was it an actor strike or director strike on the heels of that? So anyway, most of 2023 was taken up with strikes.
Is that because of AI and stuff like that?
That was part of it. Yeah, it was part of their negotiations and all that. So that was a big part of it.
It's a real problem.
It took a long time. Took a long time to do all that. So that essentially took 2023 just out of play.
Just flushed it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple months on the front end, about a month on the back end, but December in like Hollywood and in publishing, and it's kind of break time.
Yeah.
So we did get a writer's room together though, and we got at the front end, got a little on the back end, and started doing the line producer got out there. We found a great spot. We're gonna go film in the Middle East for this show, and but in the time that the line producers are doing that, the Israel attacks happened on October 7th, and so a place where we can't essentially film where we were planning on filming, and that pushed us another couple months to go to find another location to film some of these places that doubles for Iraq. So it just so it put us about a year behind, is what I mean to say. So it put us about a year behind where we would have been without the strikes and without the attacks in Israel.
I think the other location that you guys ended up selecting probably passes just as well for that though. Anyway,
it looks good. People will judge it, I guess, in a few days here when Dark Wolf hits screens.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm watching.
It looks good. good.
Hey, I'm telling you, dude, I've been looking forward to this for a while because, like,
It's
the last,
good.
I love Taylor Kitsch, and I
He's
mean, I
awesome.
love everything that both of him and Chris Pratt have done. I mean, and the whole series was amazing. The first season, and we've been looking forward to this next one. So we're definitely gonna binge it for sure when it
It's
comes out.
good, and the goal is to make it better than the first season, and so I think we did that. And the goal is for True Believer to be better than this, and to
Yeah.
always get better. You always got to improve. But this is more like a shift in tone. So it starts off in Mosul, Iraq, so it predates the events of the Terminal List, and then moves up into Europe and becomes more of a spy thriller from there. But
Okay.
I could not be more pleased with how it came out, and it's such a great team. I just love the team that we put together for this, and from Antoine Fuqua and Chris Pratt, and then everybody on down. It's
Yeah.
just such that they put on set. It's such a great feeling, like, to be there, and such a great environment and atmosphere. And that's all because really Chris and David DiGilio, the showrunner, and Antoine, they set this tone. And so many people come up to me on set and they say, "Hey, I've been involved in hundreds of these Hollywood productions, and I've never felt the way I feel on this set." And I think that just makes everybody bring their A game and exceed expectations at every turn because they want to be part of this. Because David DiGilio, the showrunner, and a showrunner is like in feature films, you have a director, and they're
Yeah.
kind of like the singular point of contact for everything. But in a series where you have multiple directors, you have a showrunner, so they're essentially the single point of contact for everything.
So there's a continuity.
Yeah,
Okay.
between everything.
Makes sense.
And so he just set this tone and takes care of everybody because you're filming for 6 months, and that doesn't even include all the prep that goes into it. Let's say 6 months before,
Yeah.
and then all the marketing and everything else 6 months or a year after. So all of that. So that's a long time to put one of these together. That's a
Yeah.
lot of energy and effort. And during that time, people are going to get married, have divorces, have kids, they're going to lose loved ones. They're like, life is going to
They're
happen
gonna get
during this
sick.
time frame.
Yeah. There's so
And
much.
so much is going to happen. And he just really takes care of everybody, and everyone knows that. And so it's created this incredible environment. We have people from the outside wanting to be a part of our show because they've heard just what a great environment it is and how we take care of our people. And it's just fantastic to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that just based on, a lot of the folks that are involved in this, and then obviously you, I would imagine that it's probably a fairly well-oiled machine, and it's not like you're not doing this because you're trying to make money. You're doing this because you're passionate about this, because this is something that you genuinely love the storytelling aspect, and that's a big thing. That's like part of military culture in general. Is storytelling is huge with military culture. Like the Roman legionnaires and the Greeks back in the day were probably telling each other's like junior service members stories of previous battles and stuff like that. And like storytelling's so big with like military culture in general throughout all history. And I think that one of the things that's made this whole endeavor with the Terminalist and everything so successful is the fact that people are genuinely passionate about it. They're enthusiastic about it. They want this thing to win, and they're not just in it because they're like, "Hey, we need to do a quick turn and burn. We need this to turn into a profit making machine." Whereas, like, you see other things that we don't need necessarily reference or say, but there's other things that don't necessarily turn out the same way because of different motivations behind it. You know what I mean? So, like that, having that passion for something, I think in any genre of whatever you're doing with your life is going to change the outcome by far, and also change the journey, because
Yeah.
people are going to enjoy it in a different capacity when everybody is on board, like really excited to be there
Yeah,
and be a
people are
part of it.
definitely invested.
Yeah.
Everybody's invested. Cast, crew, executive producers, MRC, which is the production company between us and Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon, everyone is heavily invested personally in this.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see. But really, storytelling from the beginning of time was about passing on lessons. And so go back to the earliest days. You have to be good, and we're here today because we had ancestors that were good at fighting and good at hunting. Like,
Yeah,
that's why
they
we were
were
here.
good at both.
And
Yeah.
everyone here shares that. Everyone in the world shares that. It's been suppressed in a lot of us,
Yeah.
but it's still there. And none of us would be here if we didn't have relatives way down the line, our ancestors who were good at those two things.
Yeah.
But in order to pass on the lessons from those, you had to do that through a story.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't write it down. So you're telling those stories around a campfire. So lessons of the hunt, lessons of warfare, because you're protecting that tribe, you're providing for that tribe, and so storytelling is really deep within that human psyche. It's deep within all of us. And so I'm very intentional in the books when I talk. I use fire in the book. So whether people recognize it or not, to me, it's fire is in these because of that fire way back in the beginning of time
Yeah.
and being around that fire and telling that story. So I very intentionally use things like that in the books as I'm writing. But that's what the beginning of storytelling was passing
Yeah.
on lessons. So in mine, like I don't have a leadership book or anything like that, but my character has these different attributes, and some of these leadership lessons that I've learned over my life, they end up in the thrillers,
Yeah.
just naturally. Things that I learned, lessons that the character is learning, and I also think why these books have been successful is because this character isn't just picked up and dropped into a new situation every time as the same person. He's learning, and James Reece is my character.
Yeah.
He's learning from what happened in this book, and he's applying it to the next book. So he's taking the lessons of the past and applying them going forward as wisdom, which we should all be doing. And that's another thing that we all have in common. We're all on a journey. Every single person on this planet is also on a journey. They're on their own journey, but so is my character in the book. He's on this journey.
Yeah.
And so I always say that people say, can I pick up any book and read it? And yeah, you can, but it'll probably be more valuable reading experience to start at the beginning and work your way through. And I kind of don't like saying that because I think the first book is not as good as the others,
Yeah.
and each one has gotten better. But if you go on this journey with James Reece, and that's why I'm excited about Cry Havoc, because it's the first one, 1968, his dad, Vietnam, Navy SEAL, MACV-SOG, doing missions into Laos, but really it turns into an espionage thriller set in Saigon. And that really hasn't been done too much before. There have been Charles McCary did something as close as you could get, I think, with The Tears of Autumn, but that was 1974. Honorable Schoolboy with Jean Le Carré, but I think that was 1977. So there's a couple of Graham Greene, of course, The Quiet American, but really hasn't been done since. And so it was really exciting for me to set an espionage story in the heart of the Vietnam conflict, in the bloodiest year of that conflict. So, but that essentially is the first book. So now people can pick that one up and then go forward from there. So I'm excited for this thing to hit shelves.
Are you familiar with Metal Gear Solid?
I feel like, are there multiple Metal Gear type things
There are
out there?
multiple Metal Gear Solid games. Popular video game. It's like espionage, tactical espionage is one of the things they talk about. Yeah, it's like, and it's been so the Metal Gear Solid series has been around since like PlayStation 1, like since I was a kid. They've come out with 2, 3, 4, 5. I think of 5. Yeah. And then what they did is the third one takes place during Vietnam, I believe it takes place during the Vietnam era. And that's like, it's like kind of a flashback, but it's like that guy was like the original version of the person that's the protagonist and all the rest of
Oh,
them.
interesting.
Not necessarily a father, but like a genetic copy almost.
Okay.
They essentially genetically copied that guy from the Vietnam era, and he was the main protagonist for all of the rest of the video games.
Interesting. Okay.
Kind of it's a Hideo Kojima. You familiar with Hideo Kojima?
No.
He's like one of the greatest video game storytellers.
I missed the whole video game thing. I mean, I mentioned Atari 2600 because that's where my video game kind of expertise ended.
And that's totally fine. But bottom line is Hideo Kojima is known as like one of the greatest storytellers of all time in the video game universe, just because like his storytelling methods are so
Cool.
elaborate and detailed down to the smallest nano micrometer of whatever it is. But that's what it kind of reminds me of, like thinking about that, just talking about like, hey, this is James Reese's father and things that he did. You said as a MACV-SOG guy in Laos during the Vietnam era. And so that's like kind of like the I guess the correlation, if you want to draw between the two, but that I see when I think about that. And there's a lot of people out there that have an interest in that time period because, you know, a lot of the coverage of Vietnam, like you said, took place or the references to it took place in the 80s. And a lot of the folks that are growing up today didn't get exposed to a lot of that stuff because obviously that was long before they were born. And so they just don't see any of that out there, you know? So like, if we can like reintroduce that to folks of this generation that were born after 2001 and stuff like that, and get them reinterested in that stuff, then I think that's valuable, you know, because then what that does is it piques their interest in history in general. And maybe that is like a gateway to them being more interested in other history and other eras,
Yeah.
whether it be ancient civilizations or whether it be just like older American history. Like maybe they'd be interested in like learning about the 1800s after that. Maybe they'd be interested in the gold rush. Maybe they'd be interested in the Western expansion of the United States. There's all kinds of stuff that opens doors to if you can pique their interest in this one thing that took place. And it's like there's a lot of stuff that happened during that era that that's kind of like faded into obscurity almost, because like what most people think about when they think about Vietnam is like the evacuation, when we were actually evacuating the embassy, and when like the North Vietnamese troops came down, and we brought everybody out. They think about like all the negative media coverage of the entire duration of the war. They think about like Full Metal Jacket being like one of those iconic films about the Vietnam era. Platoon.
All 80s.
What's it called? Apocalypse Now.
Yeah,
That's
Apocalypse Now, 70s, Deer Hunter, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Hamburger Hill. We got a slew.
All that stuff.
In there, yeah.
And that's what people like think about. That's usually like the first thing that they think about, because pop culture, like you said, is one of those things that impacts people the most. But I think this new Cry Havoc book, I think, is going to be another one of those things that kind of like reinvigorates people's interest in that time period. Which I think is important, because like it's part of American culture, it's part of American history, and whether you agreed with the war or not at the time or currently, like it's still part of our history, and I think history is fascinating to like learn about and just have situational awareness about, because there's so much there. There's so much meat there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I say about these books. There's lessons in the pages of history. So that's why I really wanted to do the targeted series, because we relearn things that we don't need to relearn if we just spend a little time in the pages of the history books.
Yeah. That's very true. We've made a lot of mistakes that we could have, like, for sure learned from lessons that we supposed to have learned beforehand.
Absolutely. I mean, all through Afghanistan, Iraq, there were lessons out there, particularly Afghanistan. If we took lessons from the Soviet incursion from 79 to 89, we drew the wrong ones. And we also had the British incursions, 3 British incursions. We had, you didn't even have to go back to Alexander the Great. You didn't have to go back that far. You could look at very recent examples from the Soviet experience, but instead we didn't. We had this imperial hubris, for whatever reason, that makes us think, or makes some senior level policy makers think that we can ignore those questions because we're not them, or whatever it might be.
The Charlie Wilson war period is like very, like,
great
that.
book.
There's a lot of lessons to be learned from that.
Great book.
So I've never read the book. I saw the movie.
There you go.
Saw the movie.
My hope is that always, like, the movies and things like that draw people towards the books, because it's because in a book, I mean, there are constraints in a history book because you want to tell the truth, even if it's your perspective or whatever. But you're going to primary sources, and you're trying to create something that other historians in the future, people in the future, can use and reference. But the movie, you have a time limit. You can't have a 10-hour film. It's going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe 2.5, something like that. So you have a constraint there. And so the hope is that you see that, like, oh, that's a great movie. Let me go to the book.
Yeah.
And, oh, wow, no kidding. There's some fun. That wasn't in the movie. That's really interesting. But it didn't make the edit. It got cut, or it didn't even make it into the script, or for whatever reason. And then that leads you down another path. Like, oh, I'm going to go to what books were used to write this one. Oh, wow, that sounds interesting. Boom. Or the author says that this book, everyone should read this book if they liked the one that they just read. Oh, very cool. I'm going to go check that out. So it just adds to our understanding of the past, which allows us, of course, to then make better decisions in the present.
Yeah. I think learning from history is such a massive thing. I mean, there's so much to learn there. There's so many things that have happened that's like history repeating itself throughout all of history, where it could have been avoided, or it could have been like the direction that the I guess the resolution for whatever event happening could have easily been avoided or changed had we looked back and said, okay, well, this is what happened in this period of time, that they did the same kind of thing, different people, different place, different time, but very similar situation. And that's for sure, especially in like the geopolitical climate for today, given the things that are going on in the Middle East, the things that are happening in Ukraine, the things that are happening in Southeast Asia, all these places. this history repeats itself all the time. It really does, you know.
Certainly rhymes. And speaking of television and movies, when you adapt something, because a lot of people reach out to me, and I see them all about, hey, why wasn't this in the TV show or whatever else from my books? And in my books, there are no constraints. I can do anything I want. It's fiction. It's not
Yeah.
history. It's fiction, and so I can do anything. I have no budgetary constraints, location constraints, actor availability constraints, nothing.
No logistical. You're just in your
Nothing.
house banging away on the keyboard.
Make up anything I want. Aliens can come down from outer space, and it doesn't matter. I can do anything that I want. And then now you take that book to adapt it, and now you have constraints. You have budgetary constraints, which are big, actor availability constraints. You have time constraints because you have to tell this story over, let's say, for a Terminalist, you have 8 episodes of about an hour each. Each one of those episodes has to have its own arc, and then there has to be an overarching story arc for that entire 8-hour series.
Yeah.
So you have all of these different constraints in place. The time one is a big one. So there's going to be changes. Like there's just no way for there not to be changes.
Of course.
And my initial conversation with the showrunner David DiGilio back in December of 2019, when we teamed up and started putting that pilot together, I said, hey, I know there's going to be changes, and that's okay. I feel so fortunate that we're turning this thing into a TV show. And I also referenced First Blood. Great movie in the early 80s with Sylvester Stallone. Very different than the novel, written 10 years earlier by David Morrell. But both fantastic. I love them both, but so different. So if someone's seen the movie, they will be very surprised by the book. And
probably a lot different.
A lot different. And I mean, everybody shares. You have, of course, Rambo, whose name isn't John Rambo yet. It's just Rambo. And then you have Troutman and Teasel, the sheriff, but they all have about equal time. So you get all those 3 different perspectives in there. And of course, the movie isn't that way, but and a very different ending. But I won't spoil it for people who missed it over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
I'll allow them to go back, even though I feel like it's not a spoiler 50 years on. But they should go back and read the book. But point being, I was very aware of that stepping into it, that there's going to be changes, and you know what? That's okay. So now my goal is to make or help as part of a team to make the best show we possibly can for that viewer. And so that's always the goal. Whereas the books, it's just me. And if people hate them, that's all 100% on me. And that's okay, but it's pure. It's the best that I could do at that time. Like if I went back to do the Terminalist Now book, I would make changes, but you can't go back. So, but it's the best that I could do at the time.
Sure.
And the shows are the best that we can do at the time with this huge team of people that are putting this thing together with those constraints in place. So it's a very different form of storytelling. And obviously it's a different medium, visual versus the written word on a page. So, but it's a challenge. And luckily we have a great team. So I think one has made me better at the other and vice versa. And it's been a great experience to do that. Most authors aren't as involved as I am in their work. They option the book and then it just kind of goes off. But Chris wanted me involved. Antoine wanted me involved from the get-go. So I've been intimately involved with every step of the series thus far. And the one we're filming right now, True Believer, is I think it's going to blow everybody away.
I liked your little cameo in the first one.
Thank you.
I appreciated that.
Thank you.
I haven't forgotten that. Like he's like the guy with the cool sunglasses. I'm like, there he is. I know he was excited to be in this scene.
That was awesome. I was hoping, you can't like suggest it. You can't be like, hey, can I have a cameo?
Hey, can I do like kind of what Quentin Tarantino does?
Yeah, you can't. You have to be somebody else's idea. So and also you have to be very careful about what cameo you're going to do because so much gets cut. So you have to make sure that it is an integral part of telling the story.
Oh, okay,
so it can't get cut.
Yeah.
So that part in the first one, in episode 3, in the beginning when I had my shootout with Chris, and I had to tell him also like, hey, buddy, if this was in real life, this would go down a little differently here. Because he kills me.
This would have been a very different experience.
But it was cool to see how they do that. How they put they wouldn't let me do the car crash. So he backs into me, and then we get out. He gets out, and I'm in the car, and we have a little gunfight. But they wouldn't let me do the crash. But the guy that they did do the crash was Mick Rogers, who's a legendary Hollywood stuntman who did the jump off the building in Lethal Weapon with as Mel Gibson when he's attached to that businessman guy up there. When he handcuffs him, and then he jumps off.
That was him.
And so that's Mick Rogers. Yeah.
Wow.
And awesome dude. So he doubled me, which was awesome. I got to talk to him about his career, and that was really, really cool because Lethal Weapon, once again, two Vietnam veterans as police officers in the 80s. One of the greatest probably kicked off the kind of the buddy action movie franchises.
I love those franchises.
They're
Mel
awesome.
Gibson, Danny Glover.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. So Mick Rogers doubled me, and then I get in the car after that, and or get back in the car after that. But the way that they do the bullet holes through the windows, I didn't know how they did it because I have no experience in Hollywood up to that point.
Yeah.
But they took these little mortar tubes, so like a metal straw essentially, and those are just under the dash where you can't see them from the camera looking in, and they have a ball bearing in there with a little explosive charge, and there's somebody over on the side. So as Chris is shooting in or I'm shooting out through the glass, they're hitting the little mortar tube setup, and it looks like an IED. Like it's like these like wires, and they go down to this thing, so it looks like you're going to blow up. And
oh wow!
And so they're hitting that. So I'm shooting through the windows. That's why I have my gaiters on, because of the glass fragments. But they're shooting these ball bearings into the windshield that make it crack and look like a bullet hole. And so it's pretty cool. So that was fun to see how they did that.
See behind the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's cool.
And I had to hold my breath because I'm like lying like this, and
pretending to be a dead guy.
Yeah, and I'm trying to hold my breath. I'm like, Chris, you're taking a little bit of time here to reach in to this vehicle and go through my little bag or whatever he's doing. But that was pretty fun. And
now, did you said you didn't suggest that, or they suggested it?
I agreed to it very quickly when it was brought up as an idea.
Who brought it up?
Probably the showrunner, David DiGilio. Yeah.
The showrunner, David, was like, "Hey, you
cameo? Oh, it's a great idea.
Oh yeah,
fantastic.
I hadn't thought about that.
They have to know. I mean, they know me so well at that point that they know that I'd love to do something like that. So.
Would you consider doing another one?
Well, you have to keep your eyes peeled on August 27th when Dark Wolf drops.
I'll keep an eye out. I hope to see you in there somewhere.
You just might.
That'd be
once
sweet.
Once or twice.
And now the next season after Dark Wolf. When is that set to release?
I don't know, but I would guess next summer. But I'm not
Okay.
sure because we're still filming it right now. Have another month or so to go, and we've been filming that one since March. So it's a long time.
Since March.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're about to wrap that up, but then it goes into post production. So go into all the edits. So I see those edits, and we work through all those, and that's really the make or break time is in edits really. But it's interesting to see that whole process and to be a part of it. And then once you lock those episodes, then it goes into that. Okay, well now that's all locked. What's our plan as we move towards a drop date? And then you back it up from there with all the publicity and marketing. So seeing all that, being a part of all that is really interesting as well. So yeah, it should be next summer, but I don't really know.
You've seen probably a lot of pieces of like the Hollywood cinema, TV stuff that a lot of people probably haven't. I would imagine that you've learned a lot about how that all works. Cause I'm sure like people probably don't realize the amount of work and logistics and coordination that's required to put something of that scale together. I'm sure that it is unfathomable.
It's crazy. It amazes me every time I think about it or set foot on set. And it's remarkable that anything gets made, and even more remarkable that anything good gets made. And it's all subjective, right? It's an art form. Every art form is subjective.
Sure.
But it's my first time I stepped on set was for Terminal List, that first episode in the tunnels, and we flooded the lot at Paramount Studios. So we built this tunnel complex right there. I think there's a picture I think I posted online of from a sheriff's helicopter. They took a picture for us and sent it down, so you can see all the water in there, and it was just wild to see that. So I stepped on there, and I was like, oh, wow, this is very similar to a military operation. We have the commanding officer, who is the director right there, Antoine Fuqua. And then we have, the troop commander right there. That's Chris Pratt. He actually is playing a troop commander.
Yeah.
And then we have, just like in the teams, we have a breacher in the teams. And here we have the explosives guy. And in the teams, we have an armorer. And here we have an actual armorer as well.
Yeah.
There's the medical people over there. And there's mobility. We have mobility in the teams. And everybody has to get fed. There's craft food services, just like you got to feed the troops. So that part really stood out. And everybody's at the same place at the right time with the right gear.
On time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is very similar to the military.
Yeah.
Like all those, that's like the most important part of the military. Right place, right time, right gear.
Yeah.
And same thing. And so you have all these people, like 350 people, that are the best at what they do in Hollywood, and a lot of it's very niche. Whether it's the hair and makeup people, or it's that the stunt people, or whatever it might be. The lighting people are incredible.
Yeah.
Set design, like, they're all at the top of their game, and they're all here, and they're all making this thing happen. So I have so much respect for any show that gets made out there, and I always did. I never was one of those people that would pick things apart or talk about how much I hated something or how this was fake or whatever else. I just not that kind of person. I would not want to go through life like that.
Go through life being a pessimistic, sour patch kid.
And then ruining, like, the worst thing I think is to watch like a SEAL movie with a SEAL, or like watch a police type thing, a crime movie or show with a police officer, movie about firefighters with a firefighter, you know, especially if they're like, no, that's not how it would go down, or no, that's so fake, or that, you know, and they just pick it apart as you go. They're like, they're like, just trying to enjoy this thing, you know?
Like, bro, I'm just trying to watch the
show. Yeah. So, so I was never one of those people that would pick things apart or talk about how horrible something was. But now even more so. Now I just see how much work everyone puts in and how many opportunities there are for these things to go off the rails. I mean, there are so many opportunities to mess these shows up almost every day. And so it takes so much time, energy, and effort to just keep these things on track and make the best show you possibly can with those constraints that you have in place. So it's really, and then of course today you get to hear it from everybody who hates it.
Oh,
so,
yeah, because everybody's got their opinion.
And they're all that work in, you're just like, oh, come on.
Has that been hard? Do you feel like you got any like rough criticism about any of this stuff at all?
No, I mean well, yes, but it was funny. So, and actually, so I tried to turn it into a positive. I actually went on when Tucker was on Fox. I went on and read after the first week some of the reviews. Like the Daily Beast had one that talked about it's like a red-blooded right-wing conspiracy. It's like a cross between it's like what was the whole, anyway, they had some great headlines and some great lines, but you could tell they were just written by miserable, unhappy people. And so I was just I would just read their own words back, and Tucker was just cracking up the whole time. I posted it, but he was just laughing. He never got a really word in other than to laugh. And so I was reading him, and then I have a little comment afterward. I'd be like, that doesn't sound like much fun over there at the Daily Beast. And then so and so said this.
Really unhappy.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, you got to turn those things into a positive. But I think they actually help, because when someone sees something that's critical of a show like this or my books, and they say, like, let's say about the books, like too much gear detail, you know, I hated it, you know, and someone else is like, oh, I like gear. I'm a gear guy. I probably like these books. So that negative turns in to a sale, which in turn has someone reading it and says, oh, wow, I love these things. And then they tell a friend. So that negative review actually can help.
You know what that reminds me of is the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle jeans stuff, because it was like all this negative press coming out about it from all these organizations, and it just made everybody else that wasn't on board with that process or that thought process, they were all like, wow, I really like this ad. I think I want to hire her for some ads for our company.
Oh, yeah, but also it's great. It also highlighted in particular how vocal and unhappy and nasty a very small segment is, because most everyone else really didn't change the channel if they could change the channel during those ads.
No,
most people are like, oh, that's awesome. Okay. And then gets on with their life. And then there's a certain very small segment that just lets it just get in there, and they're typing away, and they're on whatever news channel they're on, and they're saying how horrible this is or whatever.
They're on Twitter, just like Twitter fingers.
Meanwhile, that's like less than like 1%, but it just highlights how vocal they are. And so it lets you think, oh, you know what? If they're so negative about this, like a very normal ad. And then when you hear them get crazy about other things, remember that that's only a very small percentage of crazy people who are super unhappy. Well, that's the problem. Just feel sorry for them. Just feel sorry for the people that don't like that ad.
Yeah, I think the thing is that I've found is that the loudest people are on the most fringe on either side of whatever spectrum that you want to look at. Like, they are what you would refer to in statistics as an outlier. And because those outliers are so incredibly loud, because they're usually wild, crazy, super opinionated, usually saying outlandish stuff, that's the stuff that gets highlighted the most.
And that these companies then feed you.
Yes, exactly. They're feeding it to because it's the craziest stuff, and so it's going to get more engagement. And so then everybody in the center, which I think the majority of humanity is in probably the center, they look at that and they're like, wow, the whole planet's falling apart and everybody's crazy. And these people are nuts on this side and these people are nuts on this side. When in reality, in actual reality, most of us are probably somewhere in the center and are just like trying to live our lives, and like we're like, this is not how I think. I also don't think like this. You know, I'm just like, there's very normal, like you said, like these companies, they use this stuff for it's, I guess the algorithm is more so the AI designed algorithm grabs these things and then elevates it because it's very either infuriating or makes people angry or it's engaging or it's generating a lot of buzz and all this stuff.
It's only gonna get worse.
And that's what gets fed to everybody's algorithm. So
and it's only gonna get worse. Yeah. But now we have data. Like, so now you can see, oh wait, why did the stock go up for the Sydney Sweeney ad by like 300 million in like
why
a day?
Did the stock for Cracker Barrel go down in the toilet yesterday?
So look at that instead. Like, oh, okay. And all these senior level leaders at these different companies, I'm sure take that into account.
Oh yeah.
But like that stuff's great. And a few years ago, probably that company, maybe under different leadership would have apologized, for something. Or maybe Sydney Sweeney would have apologized. I love that there's no apology because you're apologizing to this minute segment of crazy people that it got angry about it. I love it. Hey, just brush them aside. Move forward and just do the best you can. Create awesome ads if that's your thing. Build the best company you can, and just sweep those nasty people aside.
Yeah, I think the thing that at the end of the day that's gonna kind of like overshadow this is the fact that money is gonna drive stuff. And like if this thing leads to more sales and like it leads to people buying more of your product or service, then that's what's going to be what they select. And companies are doing one thing. They're trying to make money. They're trying to build bigger. They're trying to make more than they made the last quarter. And they're going to follow the thing that is the most lucrative for them. And that's just the way it is. So like, hopefully that like overshadows, any of the nonsense that's coming from whatever fringe.
Just don't pay attention to it. Just drive forward and keep doing the best you can and try to do it better than you did yesterday. That's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly. So I know you were talking about, I don't want to miss this. What kind of vehicles do you drive?
Yes, I drove down here in a 1996 Land Cruiser 40th anniversary edition, all original. So it has a clicking noise going that embarrasses my son every time I drop him off at school. But so I'm a big Land Cruiser fan. Anybody who's read the books knows that. Seen the TV show. James Reece drives one that almost looks exactly like the one that I drove in the SEAL teams that I still have today, although I had it modified with the LS3 and did a whole restoration thing.
How much did that cost, that Land Cruiser?
That was pretty pricey.
Was it? Probably not something you want to discuss. Okay.
It wasn't inexpensive, but I've been looking at doing that for the longest time. So that was kind of my indulgence.
Have you looked into like how much your average Land Cruiser would cost somebody from the 90s if they wanted to buy one?
Well, if you could go back in time, you'd want to buy a bunch when they first came out because they're more expensive now, a lot of them anyway, than they were originally brand new.
Really?
So it's, the market for Land Cruisers got crazy over the last few years.
Where can you buy them?
We'll bring a trailer, or you just wherever you can buy a used vehicle. A lot of stuff online, if there's Land Cruiser community, a lot of people out there, they're part of these different communities out there, great stuff on, that's what I do like about Instagram. I love the Land Cruiser community on Instagram.
The Land Cruiser community.
Yeah, there's so many great, there's the Land Cruiser Museum, Heritage Museum right here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And it's a great place. People that are fans of Land Cruisers have got to pass through Salt Lake, just zip on over. Even if you have a flight connecting, if you have a few hours, you can zip over and check it out. But I lent the one from the show. I got that, the one that Chris Pratt drives in the TV show. I put that down there. I loaned it to them for a bit. So it's in the,
take it back.
Got it out of the garage. My wife's like, no, that's permanent. Like, so it's out of our garage. So it's,
how does that work? Like, is it registered to you in your name or still? And it's
well, now it's mine. Yeah, they gave it to me. So
that's
cool. So I have that one. And then my personal 1988 FJ62. So I have that. But I really love driving right now I have 296 80 series. So I have the 40th anniversary edition and a collector's edition. So they did the 80, and Land Cruiser people can correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I think happened is that they made a certain number. People. Yeah, they made a certain number of 40th anniversary editions. Like it's going to be like a collector's type of a thing. Yeah. So they made a certain number. And then they sold out pretty quick in 1996. And they're like, oh, geez, we should have made more. So they did a collector's edition after that.
Oh.
So, which is, essentially some color differences, different badging, that sort of a thing. So I have both of those, and I love both of those vehicles. So they're just at the time before things got too modern.
Yeah.
And so the two more modern vehicles that I got rid of recently, just because they kept beeping at me. like beeping at me. One started to do an upload, so I had the the Ram Power Wagon 75th anniversary edition. I was super excited to get the Power Wagon because of its history going back to like World War II, and I was just a huge fan of them. And so I'm a sucker for anniversary edition anything.
Yeah.
So I have my BMW motorcycle. I have an R9T that's an anniversary edition. So I'm just a sucker for those things. So I got and I got it all, put the tires on, the suspension and the whole thing and like anyway, it's a computer still. It's like, and it has a
Yeah.
little thing. I don't want to have a truck where I'm turning this little knob like it's a Range Rover or something like that. I want to friggin'
I want something I
yes,
can grab with my
yes,
fist.
I want to
Yeah,
friggin' slam that thing into reverse and I don't want to like go to reverse.
Yeah, I know.
No, it drives me nuts. So so I got rid of the Ram and then got an Enos Grenadier. I was so excited about the Enos Grenadier and
Enos Grenadier. What?
yeah, so it's a guy in the UK, a billionaire in the UK, who tried to buy and if I get this a little wrong, once again, the general gist is right.
Yeah,
He wanted to buy the plans or the patents from the old Defenders, the Land Rover Defender,
okay.
because they have the new one. Obviously, it looks a lot different than the old ones that had a similar look for a long time.
Sure.
I think the last year you could buy the old one in the United States was in '97, I want to say. But anyway, because it doesn't have airbags, that sort of a thing.
Sure.
So he wanted to buy those patents and make something that was modern, that looked cool, looked old, was more utilitarian. And so I heard about it. I mean, years ago, I heard about it. I'm like, oh man, got my name on the list, like first thing. And I was one of the first people. I think they told me I was the first person to get one in Utah. And
Really?
and it was supposed to be the least amount of computers you can have in a modern vehicle and still be legal.
The
So
least amount of computers
because
that you
there's
can
so
have?
many computers in like all these mini computers.
You have to have them in there now?
Yes, in order to have your backup cameras and your beeps and your this and your just can
Oh.
check it out. I don't know how many that most cars have, but it's a lot.
But you do, like, in order to register it with the state, it has to have a certain amount
It
or
has to
something?
have airbags, it has to have all these things,
Oh,
emissions. It has
man.
all the normal stuff.
Yeah.
So and the old ones don't have that.
Yeah.
So he wanted to make something that looked cool and was utilitarian and all that. And man, it just kept beeping at me. Everything I would do would like beep. I would go over the speed limit, tick, 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 tick. You're like, oh, son of a, too much.
Too much
I'm like,
noise.
too much. I need less things that beep at me, and more things that are like a '96 Land Cruiser, an '88 Land Cruiser,
Yeah.
a '78 FJ40, which I also have and love. So I'm back to only Land Cruisers right now.
Yeah. So funny thing, I drove a Land Cruiser when I was in Iraq too, actually. And granted, when I was in Iraq, it was much different than when you were in Iraq because I wasn't there until 2023. Very different now, obviously. I left prior to October 7th, so I wasn't there for when everything started really popping off with drones and stuff, like the Shaheeds that were coming in after October 7th. But the entire time I was out there, for the most part, I drove a Toyota Land Cruiser,
Nice.
fob runner with like no plates, and manual, straight drive.
Oh, cool.
It was a cool experience. Like I
Wow.
really enjoyed driving it. It was just like it was like kind of a beater, right? If I could have had that shipped home and just kept it
Yeah.
myself, that would have been sweet. I don't know what happened to that thing. I hope somebody gets to ship it home, but I definitely want to get one. I think for like a daily driver at some point, just because they're good. They're good vehicles.
Love it.
It's all terrain. Like if it snows or something like that, you can get through there.
Yeah, that's why I have the two now. I have snow tires on one, and then I have just regular all terrains on the other. So
Are they diesel?
I don't have to. No. I
Okay.
think I'm sure they made a diesel somewhere in the world,
Yeah.
but these are not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a diesel one. I think if I could. Maybe.
Yeah, because you can drive it forever, so they won't do that here.
Yeah.
Want the turnover here. in the
Yeah, they
United
want
States,
they want you to buy a new one every couple of years.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, and that's another thing. It's like when you said that they need to have a certain amount of computers, I'm like, damn it, man, I want to get a car that I can like have off grid. That's like
Yeah, that's tough.
somebody
You got to
can't-
go back. Even these ones have, if there is like an EMP type thing, like that, these are going down. Like,
Yeah,
but you got to go back pretty far to get one
that doesn't have something like that. That wouldn't be affected. Like you'd have, what is it? A catalytic converter.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure there's a whole. I laugh because I go to the experts for these sorts of
I'm
things.
sure.
Like,
I'm
yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
mean, if one day I'd like to be able to go to them once I've grown a little bit more. But
yeah, so I'm a big fan of Land Cruiser, and the cast and crew got over to Africa a few months ago to film True Believer. The first part of True Believer takes place one in the Atlantic and then in Mozambique. So we're filming in South Africa, which is doubling for Mozambique, but right there, close to the border in the Limpopo province. And I got these texts back because I joined them a couple of weeks later because I'm writing the books and doing all these other things. So I joined them a couple of weeks later, and they texted me when they got there like, now we see why you're infatuated with Land Cruisers. They're like,
they understand now.
They're like, everything over here is a Land Cruiser. And yeah, there's a reason for that.
Dude, they're just nice vehicles. They drive good. They're comfortable. I mean, you hand roll the window down.
Yeah.
Like throw your arm out the window and just feel the breeze flowing through, man.
Yeah.
And it is a different experience.
Yeah. And I think, once again, power popular culture in the 80s, not every TV show, a lot of the TV shows that I watched had a vehicle that was essentially a character. So you had Magnum's Ferrari, you had Crockett's Ferrari in Miami Vice, you had the A-Team van, you had the Simon and Simon Charger, you had Airwolf helicopter, you had the Blue Thunder helicopter, you had all these shows that's a Starsky and Hutch car, you had all the Knight Rider, you had all the Smoking the Bandit, you had all these shows and stuff that had vehicles essentially as characters. So I think that's why I have the Land Cruiser in the books. It's so closely associated with James Reece and so closely associated with me personally. And Ian Fleming did something similar. When we go back to the influence of all those authors that I read growing up, Ian Fleming was one of the first people in the Bond novels to specifically mention certain types of products. So we know that Bond wore a Rolex. And he doesn't really specify what kind, but he wore a Rolex.
Yeah.
You know what kind of coffee that he drank. Yeah, he made it in a Chemex coffee thing. So he drove a Bentley. Most people that have just seen the movies, they associate him with Aston Martin, but really in the earlier novels, he drives an old Bentley, which was even old at the time. It was like mid-1930s, 36, 37. Anyway, an older Bentley. And in the books. So he was one of the first people to do that. And for me, it would be very unnatural. We talked about earlier, the shoes that we're wearing Solomon's, my Sitka pants on, whatever, a triple aught shirt. I'm like, oh, Cruisers of War right there. Yeah. Cruisers of War. We're talking about Land Cruisers.
That's funny.
Like all these things, they tell a story.
Have you ever seen the Toyotas of War Instagram page?
Oh yeah, that's where this is from.
Oh, you bought it from them? You bought their merch?
Yeah. Totally.
Shout out to Toyotas of War.
Yeah. I love his stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if Toyota loves it that much, but
Well, I mean, honestly, at this point in this day and age, they really ought to use it as a marketing term because everybody's driving a damn Toyota.
I know. I don't think they like to be so closely associated with revolutionary and terrorist forces that
maybe not.
Setting up heavy machine guns in the back of their Hiluxes.
But it's so cool though.
As they overthrow governments and that sort of thing. So I think they try to keep a little bit of distance between that and them. But yeah, that's a great Instagram account, and I have a bunch of their shirts.
That's freaking cool. I'm glad that you knew who they were.
Of course,
I was curious because
we linked up. I've shown him my Land Cruisers in Park City. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So how many Land Cruisers do you own in total then?
5.
5 total?
5. There might be a 6th on the way. I'm not positive, but 5 for sure.
And then, do you have any other vehicles outside of Land Cruisers?
Not anymore. I have a 4Runner. I love a 4Runner. My daughter took that one now. Yeah, she took that one when she turned 16. So she's taken that one. But it's hard to beat a 4Runner. Like if you can just get one car, I could probably just get a 4Runner.
Yeah, Toyotas in general. Just kind of a fan of Toyotas. Just like their longevity and stuff.
Yeah, like why not? I love vehicles. I mean, eventually. I'm a vehicle guy, like a kid growing up. There's a few on my list, like now, but the focus right now is the books.
Sure.
And but eventually there will be more than Toyota Land Cruisers in my driveway and in our garage. But right now, that's what we have.
Do you know how to work on vehicles or anything?
Not very good. No.
Not really. I don't either. I just don't have the time.
I don't want to misrepresent anything here.
I don't have the time to look in. I could probably change my oil if I really needed to, but I don't like. I could probably change a tire. I'm sure you probably
change a tire. You had to grow. Growing up, you had to change a lot of tires for whatever reason. I had to do that. I had to do that a lot of my parents' cars. So I certainly can do that, or I could do that back in the day. In mobility packages for the SEAL teams, we had to learn how to take care of Hiluxes for the most part, and then the Humvees, the gun trucks. So we did all that, but you also have the people that are really good at that sort of thing, especially after I became an officer. They don't want me down there messing everything up. I have a different job, but I still like to do that. I still like to get my hands dirty and do that sort of thing. I remember as part of our when we before we got our tridents, now you get them when you graduate SEAL qualification training after buds. But when I went through, you had to go to your SEAL team. There was a probationary period, which I thought was really cool because, especially because I read about it before I got there, and it was like this is your last time to be evaluated, and you're being evaluated by your peers, those who you're going to go downrange with potentially to war, and they have the kind of the yay or nay on you. So I did like that, but as part of that, we had like a final test. I think I forget what it was called at the SEAL team, where you go around to the different departments, and you had a certain amount of time at each one, and you're putting assembly, disassembly of like a heavy machine gun, and your M4, and the SIG, and whatever else, and one of those though was working on the engines. So working on the engines for the outboard engines for the Zodiacs.
Yeah.
And so I think you had to solve like 3 problems that were the most common things to impact those engines once you throw them out of a helicopter for a duck. So you throw them out, you jump in after, and then get in, and the things are padded in there to protect certain parts of the engine, so you cannot take it apart, take that padding out, and then fire it up, and off you go. And there's a spare engine in there as well. I think it was a 50 on the back and a 35 maybe as a spare. I forget. It's been a moon or two.
Yeah.
But you had to then fix those problems. The most common things to go wrong, then you had to fix, and you're on the clock and you're doing it. So I think that's the extent of my my mechanical know-how. I think it ended with that.
Well, that's fair. Let me ask you this: what's your favorite weapon system that you used while you were in the SEALs? You had to pick one.
Yeah, M4, just because it was the primary weapon system for me my whole time.
Okay.
So I'm just so comfortable with it. But that would be a different answer if we'd had a different weapon system as our essentially main battle rifle.
Yeah, it's changed over the years, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, M4 and its different variations. But you need red dot, sling, light, pretty much good to go.
1 point, 2 point,
3 point.
2 point.
Yeah. Is there a 3? What is a 3 point?
3. I don't know. I think 3 point sling is like.
I don't know all the nomenclature now.
Yeah, I think 3 point sling is just basically.
I did a 1 point sling for a while. 2006, I ran with a single point.
A single point.
Yeah, and so we did that for a while. It was popular for a bit, and it worked great for me. It was like this little. I forget who made it. It was a little bit of bungee in it, but it was easy to stow to do prisoner stuff. Easy to move to the side to go to the pistol if it goes down, type of a thing.
Yeah.
So I it worked for me, but then use the VTAC sling now because that was what I used at the end. So. That's a great sling. A lot of guys were using that as I was during my last few years in.
Sure. Yeah, we were using Blue Force slings for.
Yeah.
I think Blue Force slings, like the 2 point Blue Force, that you can just like grab that one piece and like shorten the length, and
gotta climb something or whatever. It's easy to bring it tight.
Yeah, you can loosen it up, throw it around your back real quick if you got to climb something or whatever. That's probably the most common one that the Marine Corps uses now. I mean, I know that we still have M16s, M4s, and we have like the M27 IARs from HK, which is, for the most part, most of the infantry has the M27 IARs now, because that's what they were trying to transition the whole infantry over to, so that way everybody has a fully auto, relatively medium, I would say medium range more than long range weapon, so that they could be kind of like relied upon as an automatic weapon. And even though it's not a belt fed, so it's not necessarily the same benefit as to having like a saw, like an M249 or something. But that was kind of the intention behind that, I think. But as a civilian, you get an opportunity to go shooting out because you got some land out here, right?
Yep. Yeah, but I don't shoot on it. I think I can, but I don't, just because I don't want to be respectful of the neighbors. So I go, I go somewhere else.
That's fair.
I mean, they're pretty far away. The neighbors are pretty far away, but still,
yeah.
Just want to be respectful,
How many acres you got out here? Are you allowed to say?
I think I'll keep it because it'll allow people to find out exactly.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So, but
you got a decent amount of space though.
Got a little space. Very fortunate. Have a archery, a 3D archery thing set up, kind of like Total Archery Challenge. Actually, Total Archery Challenge guys came up and set it up for me, so I have all these different angles to shoot the bow and everything. So I have that set up at the house. I can do that because it obviously doesn't make any noise.
Sure. Can you go hunting out? You go hunting out here
ever? Yeah. Do it's been a little while. I think last time I hunted was over a year ago. in Lanai, Hawaii. I have a hunting operation out there called Pineapple Brothers Lanai.
In Lanai.
Yeah.
No
So it's
kidding.
axis deer, mouflon sheep out there.
I think is that the same place? I think that's what one of the places that Rogan was talking about. He goes hunting. Is the meat sweet from those deer?
I wouldn't say sweet, but it definitely has a different. It's so good, so tender.
Yeah,
it's so good. Yeah,
and there's it's just like there's hundreds of them because there's nothing.
There's thousands of them. Yeah,
thousands because nobody's there to really hunt them except for with bow. Right.
Right. They were brought over in the 1800s and just flourished. So brought over, I think from India. Anyway, brought over and they just flourished because there was no really natural predators other than man. So but they're so good, so good. Hunting's a really big part of Hawaiian culture. So we try to be super respectful of that out there and have some amazing guide out there for people. And it's wild because you stay at the Four Seasons, so it's like a family thing
instead of in the rough.
Yeah, so it doesn't count against your hunting time, meaning you can bring your family with you and you can get up in the morning and go hunt in the evenings, whatever. And your spouse and your kids can have a great time at the Four Seasons pool and all that stuff. And you have a great dinner at Nobu and still hunt. Nice. So it's very unique in the in hunting circles. But out here in Utah, I got a great elk out here. Been a couple of years now. I haven't been able to go the last 2 years just because I was so busy. I was signed up to go and ready to go, and then late with some deadline and had to cancel the last 2 or maybe even 3 years out here, just down the road, about 45 minutes from here, actually, an hour from here, 45 minutes from my house, probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great spot for that. So love taking the kids, doing that. It's harder to do the older that they get because there's so many other competing things, sports and everything else. But it was great to get out there away from the phones, in a tree stand. We're on a lease out in Texas for a long time, out in Red River County up there. It's kind of on the Texas-Oklahoma border. Yeah. So no high fence or anything like that. But being out there with my daughter in a tree stand or whatever, just hanging out and talking, whispering, and not distracted by phones or anything else. So and then very cool for her to be able to get something and then put it on our table, and then we get to relive that hunt as we sit around the table and share in that food. So
that's valuable because I mean, like, especially in today's day and age, it's hard to really get a lot of that time where you're like disconnected from the internet and
it's so primal.
You have to talk to each other, and it is primal, exactly. And there's something to be said about like spending time with your kids, doing something like that, because that's something that they will remember for the rest of their life, and then they will want to then probably pass that down to their children and have that experience with them because they look upon it with such fondness.
Definitely not disassociated from that, so they appreciate more when you go into the grocery store and they see no matter what it is, could be eggs and could be lettuce, but it took a lot to get that lettuce to sit there at your local Whole Foods or whatever, and those eggs on that shelf, and the chicken behind the counter, that steak behind that counter, that fillet that you're buying. You think about where it came from, rather it just being the same thing as like a cereal or a can. It's you think about it in a different way when you see how much prep work went in to getting ready to go hunt, to getting your bow sighted in, of knowing the distance where you can make those ethical shots, knowing your limitations, and with a rifle, whatever rifle and setup that you have for hunting. So it's how much went in there, going to the place wherever it was, taking that animal, then field dressing, and then getting it back, and then getting it to a butcher, or maybe you do it yourself or whatever it is. But you've put in that, once again, that sweat equity, and you appreciate it a lot more. And then you appreciate the other things that you can just go into the grocery store and buy as well. You can actually think about it and think about where this came from.
Yeah, so I think that's one of those things that doesn't really occur to people a lot. Like, what did it take for this to get here for me to come by?
I know. People talk about how expensive it is.
A whole lot of stuff.
Yeah. And whenever time someone says how expensive something is, I always think, every time I see it, I'm like, I can't believe how inexpensive this is because of what it took to get this there. Just think of what it took to get this filet here, this chicken here, this egg here, unbroken, in your perfect little box sitting there.
This basket of strawberries. How many countries did this go through to get to me? How many states did it go through? Did it go on a truck? Did it have to get frozen first? Was it like, how did it get here from California and it's still fresh?
Exactly. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I'm amazed every time I walk into a grocery store. Even I was as a kid too. I remember as a kid thinking, wow, how many chickens does our country go through in a day? I mean, as a little kid, I'm like, oh my, how is it possible that that many chickens exist?
Yeah.
I know. I remember thinking that as a kid. I'm still amazed by it. You can tell I'm still amazed that we produce that many chickens every day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Dude, I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. And I also do like how there's a lot of these alternative companies out there that are doing like renewable what's it called? Renewable farming, like the White Oaks pastures guys that they
I don't
do there.
know.
You know you know what I'm talking about?
No.
There's a bunch of like agriculture guys that they raise their own animals in like the most, I guess, if you want to call it like organic free range as they can possibly be
Yeah.
compared to like factory farming. It's like an ethical way to
Yeah.
farm animals. There's a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
going on too. That's like, and the quality of the meat is significantly different from like the factory farm animals, and you can probably tell the difference between the two just if you like tried both of them back to
Yeah.
back. But there's a lot of that stuff out there too. Folks that are raising animals of
And you can
various
follow them
kinds.
online. You can follow them on Instagram, and you can like order a box of steaks from this place that you've been following, so you can kind of see where it came from, know the family that's been raising these things and caring for them and all of that. So
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Quick question: what's your favorite meat that you've ever had, whether it be like commercial or game? Is there a specific one, like a specific animal that you've enjoyed the most?
Yeah, but I think a lot of it has to do with who you're with, what happened during the day, and all that sort of thing. But a backstrapped from a deer that we got with my daughter in Red River County in Texas when she was 7, her first year. There's just something about that. Just slicing them up, a little salt and pepper, just fried.
Yeah,
Right there's just something, just quick little sear there. So good.
yeah.
So that stands out. I did have a great steak in New York though for the premiere. I was shocked. A place called Bourbon Steak. Anyway, Bourbon Steak. Yeah.
Yeah.
They put us up at the this hotel kind of overlooking Central Park or whatever. And we got there late with my family, and as we were driving in, I was like, "Oh, steak!" And it was like a block down from the hotel. So we went there and had an amazing steak there. And it was the part of the ribeye. What do they call it? The rib. Anyway, I'm gonna mess it up right now.
The ribeye.
But yeah, it was a ribeye, but it was only the that cut. What do they call it? The rib cap. The rib cap.
The rib cap.
Oh, they did it.
So
and
it's
they cook on
fatty.
fire. I mean, not extra fatty. It's not like a Wagyu or anything like that, I don't think. But the way they cook there over fire and whatever they're putting on that, and then have it be just that part of the ribeye that's the rib cap. So it's the tenderest part of the ribeye.
Yeah.
That was good.
I don't think I've ever had a steak in New York City before, in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I would imagine that they probably, being a major city like that, they probably have like, fine-tuned it pretty significantly.
I think they might be one of the only ones that cooks with fire in New York. I think most of the other ones don't. But anyway, regardless, that stands out because it was so recent.
Yeah.
But most of the ones that I love are just after a day of hunting when you're around that fire. There's a place that I won't name it, but it's up in Washington State, and we used to do SEAL sniper sustainment training up there, and got a deer up there doing that, and it's hanging in the tree, and you're slicing pieces off and just searing it on the grill, but you're with your buddies, your teammates, and that was pretty good.
That's cool. Like while you were training.
Yeah, part of the training. Yeah.
Oh, part of the training is you had to like kill an animal and find something that you could sustain your boys with. And eat.
So it was after sniper school, so sustainment training, and they were doing it for a few years. I'm sure they must still do it. I don't know, but it was great, and that was before September 11th, right before September 11th. But did it a few other times throughout my time in the SEAL teams as well. But it was cool because it gets you away from the flagpole, away from everybody, and you're just out there. And some guys haven't hunted before, some guys have, and you're out there, and you're doing some other stuff too. You're doing some stalks, and you're doing some training as well. Yeah. But you're in a different environment. You're getting dope on your rifle out there in these different environments, and then you're hunting as well.
You follow the page Watches of Espionage?
Of course, Watches of Espionage.
I knew you would.
Of course. No, he's become a friend and such a great guy. And I was actually on some other interviews this week, actually no, pitches this week, and I had my Watches of Espionage coffee mug that I was rocking. We actually did something out with Tudor in Northern California on the USS Hornet about Tudor and their relationship to the SEAL teams, because the guys who jumped in after the Apollo spacecraft to recover those spacecraft were UDT. So a lot of them had just come from Vietnam, and now they're jumping out of helicopters wearing Tudors to recover the Apollo astronauts. And so we did a little documentary about that in June. Came out in July, so people can find that on the Tudor, I think, YouTube page. But Watches of Espionage was out there, so we got to hang out and have a good time together. So I ask him watch questions. yeah, DC vintage watches for my Seiko stuff. So in Vietnam, obviously there's a history with special operations and Seiko watches in Vietnam in particular, and
Really?
so I weave that into the story as
It's like an
well.
intricate, like that's when you're talking about breaking stuff down to
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
very small, fine details. Seiko watches
yeah.
they have a significant relationship with the Vietnam era.
Yep, big time, big
What
time.
is that relationship?
Waltham Compass. Well, I think they were not very expensive. They were reliable. They put a Waltham compass right there on the nylon band.
Okay.
Um, so there was, I think there were four. I might get this wrong, but people can go to Watches of Espionage and check it out. I think I'm sure there's multiple articles on the exact watches and the references that guys wore in Vietnam. I think there were four, possibly five that guys were issued or some of them bought over the years. But in my books, I have Tom Reece, James Reece's father. That's my protagonist in the other contemporary novels.
Yeah.
And then this is 1968, like I said. But in the novels that are contemporary, I have James Reece has his dad's, and I have a Submariner. And I think in the early books, I said that he got it at a like a PX in Vietnam in Saigon, because I knew you could get them there. I knew you could get the GMT and you could get a Submariner, and they're about $150, something like that.
Yeah.
But then I got to that page in 1968 in Cry Havoc. I'm like, that's not very exciting just to buy it at the PX. I'm like, so I had to,
I need to come up with a good story for this.
So I have a better story now where he gets it in a card game with a Project Delta guy, which is a unit in Vietnam that not many people really know about. But
Project Delta.
yeah, and Charlie Beckwith was actually one of its commanding officers. I think he was in '04 at the time, and he would go on to be the first commanding officer of Delta Force. Wrote a book called Delta Force in the mid '80s.
Was that like the precursor to Delta Force? Was Project Delta in Vietnam?
Yep.
So that's where they came, the origination for Delta Force is from.
And I don't know if that's yes. I think it could also have come from other places, like Delta, the character, or the symbol, and all of that, or I don't know which came first, but Project Delta certainly predated Delta Force, and had the first commanding officer of Delta Force was certainly commanding officer also of Project Delta in Vietnam. So people can draw their own, conclusions from that one.
There's a lot of things that the United States there's a lot of things from Vietnam that have had a significant impact on the United States Special Operations community. Like whether it be like the SEAL
watershed
teams,
moment, watershed
the
moment,
Green Berets, like watershed moments definitely
for special operations in particular.
Yeah, I think I mean,
and we lived off those guys. Essentially, what they did, the reputation that they established in the jungles, the deltas, the mountains of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. We lived off that reputation essentially from the end of Vietnam up until September 11th. Because that was the last time we were involved in sustained combat operations. There were flashpoints. Of course, we have Desert One with Delta, which really led to the creation of SOCOM and JSOC. We have Grenada, we have Panama, we have Mogadishu, first Gulf War to a certain extent, but flashpoints, essentially.
Would you say Bosnia would be considered one?
Sure. Yeah. Certainly. And obviously very limited in scope. But because it wasn't a sustained combat operations or specific missions that we did there, but there were constraints that I don't think I would classify that as sustained combat operations. But then we get to Iraq and Afghanistan. That is certainly more along the lines of sustained combat operations, as was Vietnam. But between end of Vietnam and then, other than those flashpoints, that we really lived off the reputation that those guys established back then. So my hat's always off to those guys. I've had numerous MACV-SOG guys on my podcast, and I always learn so much from that, so much respect for them. And they're doing these missions that you'd probably get court-martialed for today, not because of what they did, but because of how they did it, meaning the oversight was just not there. The support just wasn't there. Like today, you wouldn't go out without QRF, here, and here, all established. Air support, boom, pre-planned, all of that stuff, all of these, everything in place, all this risk mitigation. Essentially, those guys are like just getting dropped off in Laos. And they're going to go and set up along the side of a trail. And there might be some aircraft overhead. If you get troops in contact, like a prairie fire emergency, they would call it. Everything in Vietnam would head towards you, but it's not up there pre-planned for the most part. If you're out there for 3 or 4 days doing that, and if you get contacted in the middle of that, then what's up is up as far as air support goes. There's not a QRF that's waiting to come and rescue you within minutes in Iraq. It can be longer in Afghanistan, of course, but it was just, and that's what I mean by they would have got get you court-martialed today. Like, we just leave the wire for 4 days without all this support in place. Like, you're probably not going to be in the military for much longer.
Or
and those guys are doing
where
it.
you were or where you were going or what you
It's
were
just
doing.
wild what these guys did.
Yeah, I would love to interview some McAfee Sod guys. Like, I would love to. Like,
I'm sure
that
John
would be...
Stryker Meyer would love to come on and talk to you. Dick Thompson, great guys. I'm sure they'd love to come on. I'll make sure you're connected with them.
That'd be awesome. Yeah,
they're such great guys, and their stories, like in Cry Havoc, I just fictionalized some of their real life stories. So in it opens in the prologue with Tom Reece on a mission in Laos. And what happens on that mission is me combining 2 real life stories that happen. I'm fictionalizing it, of course, but it happened for real. And
that is so cool.
So getting pulled through. So they call them coming out on strings. So the King Bee helicopters flown by South Vietnamese Air Force pilots would come in. They drop these ropes down. They call them strings, and the guys would tie a Swiss seat in the early days, clip in with a D-ring type of a thing, and then get hauled out of the jungle. But under fire out of the jungle, their helicopters going like this, and they're getting pulled through the
trees.
Canopy. Yes. So on multiple occasions, those guys are bouncing off trees, branches, spinning around. So I have that in the beginning of the book. And then Dick Thompson jumps out of this helicopter at one point, hanging onto this rope, and I fictionalized that for the book as well in the prologue there. So
what an experience! Holy cow, man!
Yeah, and I talk about it in the author's note. I started doing it in my 4th novel because I was getting a lot of questions about, hey, what I just read, what's real, what's not.
Yeah.
And so for the 4th one, which is bioweapons and bioweapons defense, is a big part of the plot. I talk about what was real and what wasn't. So I've done that every novel since. So in this one, same thing. At the end, I talk about what was real and where I got the inspiration for some of the things that happened in Vietnam to this fictional character, Tom Reece, and who I got it from. And a lot of it's from these guys like John Stryker Meyer and Dick Thompson, who also have books out as well. All these years later, but where they're capturing some of those lessons and that history. So
there's so much, like, every time I think about the jungle, like, of Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam, like, my extent of jungle training was at the Jungle Warfare Training Center in Okinawa, Japan. Like,
nice.
we went through the jungle. I've gone through the Jungle Warfare Training Center there.
What's the camp called? What's the Marine camp?
Camp Gonsalves.
Okay.
Yeah, Camp Gonsalves up in northern Okinawa. It's the Jungle Warfare Training Center, JWTC. It's been there for a pretty significant period of time. That is like the premier jungle training area for the Marine Corps, at least.
Nice.
And don't get me wrong, like, we've trained in Hawaii all over the place while I was stationed there too, and there's a lot of jungle in Hawaii too. But the jungle in Okinawa is like, it's the most unforgiving environment. Like, you're always wet all the time. There are snakes out there that can kill you if they bite you without it. Like, there's no anti-venom for them. There's some snakes where there is an anti-venom, but if you get bit once, you can only administer the anti-venom once, and then that is the last time that it will work for you. So, like, pretty much if you get bit by a Habu pit viper, for example, while you're in Okinawa, you are, from what I've been told, and this may be incorrect, somebody may have lied to me, apparently you're not allowed to go back to Okinawa if you've been bit by a Habu before, because the anti-venom is only supposed to work once. I don't know if that's true. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what
Please get in arguments and comments about this.
Yeah, you can get in arguments in the comments. But, like, just experiencing that's, maybe a week, maybe a 10-day field op in JWCC, like, just gives you a kind of a taste, like, just a taste of how horrible and how, like, I mean, how unbelievably unforgiving the jungle environment is for a human being. And just having that brief, small perspective from my part gives me such an immense respect for these guys that did anything in Vietnam, and they're out there for weeks and months, and some of them have no support. There are tigers out there eating people. Their bugs out there are like something out of an Alien versus Predator movie. You're being hunted by human beings. You're hungry. The water's not clean to drink. Like, you could get all kinds of bacterial infections. Like, the water's, it just goes on and on. It is,
to say nothing of the fact if you get captured.
To say nothing if you get captured and the torture involved in that. It is the most unforgiving thing you can do as a human being, and the experiences that these guys had over there, is nothing short of absolutely incredible. And their stories are so valuable, and they're not going to be around forever. Like the World War II vets are quickly, fading out of existence. And like, we got to get these stories down. I want to get these stories recorded on podcasts and on YouTube and all these other things, because they are so important to our culture and to our history and to the lessons we can learn from them.
Yeah.
And God Almighty, we got to take advantage of it while these guys are alive, because this is in some incredible stories. Just the couple that you've probably been talking about from these Mac v. Sog guys, like what an amazing a life experience. Who else can say, oh, I was like in Laos being dragged by a helicopter, by a rope, hitting trees. Like, I mean,
under fire.
Yeah. Like, when they go back to the States, they must feel like, wow, my life is so boring here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
they talk about that coming home and what that was like. And there's John Starkermeyer has a podcast called Sogcast, and it's fantastic. Cool. And he interviews all essentially a lot of people that he knew and a lot of people that he didn't know as well on Mac v. Sog, and people who supported Mac v. Sog operations. And it's a really cool podcast, and such a great guy. But I knew I wanted to write. I was very intentional in wanting to create characters who had relatives, ancestors with interesting backstories. So I seeded that very intentionally from the first novel onward, mainly through the James Reece character and then Rafe Hastings. So I have both those family lineages that I can go back and explore. And the Rafe family goes back to Rhodesia, and so I can explore that. It's a conflict that most people shy away from in literature and fiction, and I leaned into it, and I did that right from the beginning. So I can go back to the fathers and then the grandfathers of both of those characters, James Reece and Rafe Hastings. So this was the first book that does that, and like I said, it took a lot more out of me than I thought it was going to take to write everything through the lens of 1968. But it does pay tribute to those everybody really who served in Vietnam, but in particular in this book, the Mac v. Sog guys going in this case in Laos, but they also went into Cambodia and in North Vietnam.
Are you planning on making a film adaptation of that book?
Oh, that's a very interesting question that you ask.
I'm kind of curious, because I thought I saw a preview or something about like some jungle stuff.
I don't know if we saw jungle stuff or not yet, but hope to pitch it soon to MRC and Amazon, and we'll see if they want to do it.
If they don't do it, that would be the dumbest decision of their lives. I'll say that right now.
There we go.
You can quote me on that, because that if you can make a film adaptation or a TV series, adaptation for that is going to be unbelievable.
Thank you. I think so too, and so I'm very hopeful. Especially now that there's a book out, they'll see data on that book on sales. So especially if it sells well, that's a good thing in our favor here to be able to turn it into a series. So have a whole we'll have a whole pitch ready to go, and I think we do that next month maybe. So
that's cool. That's cool, man.
We'll see.
Well, I'm excited about that. That's something we don't really see a whole lot of today. Like, I mean, obviously in the 80s, like you said, there was a lot of Vietnam movies coming out in TV.
Yeah, it's been a big pause for the last 20 some years. We really haven't had that much come out based in Vietnam.
No, because I mean, obviously the global war on terror kind of overshadowed all that, since that was what was currently happening. And so a lot of people like made a lot of films and TV shows or things about that. Like, like everything you saw was like GWAT related stuff. Because that was what was current with pop culture, like the current culture. Guys were coming back from that, and there's a lot of similarities between like how the Vietnam vets felt in the 80s and how like the GWAT vets feel now, and like the things that they were doing back in the 80s compared to the way that the GWAT vets and what they're doing now.
A lot more support now, that's for sure.
A lot more support, which is good. I think that's great, especially after the evacuation, like the support systems that are in place are for sure, and they're treated much better nowadays. Like vets, the people that served in combat especially are getting a lot better treatment from the populace, and there's a lot more treatment options available to treat any type of ailments that they have as a result of their service as well. Like with everything that's going on with there's so many different treatment centers all over the United States and outside of the United States, a lot of which are founded by vets to help other veterans that are either suffering from CTE or or PTSD, or guys that have, or guys and gals that have any type of TBI from being, from getting blown up and stuff like that. There's a lot more options
Yeah,
for people to help folks
certainly.
nowadays, and support networks, which is really good. And I think that it'll continue to grow because people want to help. People want to have purpose. They want to feel like they're doing something to contribute, even when they get out, because everybody gets out eventually, and you got to find something. A lot of folks find purpose in helping the community that they were themselves a part of, which I think is great.
Yeah, that purpose, and that's really what the second book is about. True Believer. It's really about finding that next mission in life, and it's fictionalized, and it's obviously different. But what I was thinking about when I was writing that was people leaving service, because that's something that I could tap into. What does it feel like to leave service in my case and move into the private sector? But it
Yeah.
really can translate to anyone, because you're going to have a transition in life, whether that's a divorce, death of a loved one, just changing jobs, whatever it is. There's going to be these transitional moments in your life, and as you do go through that, or you think about making one of those things, one of the ones that you can control, maybe like a job, unless you get fired, which can sometimes be beneficial as well, because it sets you on a whole new course, one that you were meant to be on.
Yeah.
But it's finding that purpose, and for me, I identified what I was passionate about. So that was writing, and then what is my mission? Okay, my mission is taking care of my family, and specifically, we have a middle child with severe special needs who needs 24/7 full time care forever. So I want to make sure that he has the best care forever, well after I am gone, and that's very expensive.
Yeah.
So that's my mission. My passion is writing. How do I combine those things to give me purpose going forward? So, but to be able to think about that, articulate that, and then as I'm getting out, I'm getting these different offers to go do other things. Even though I know I want to write, I was still like, okay, if the writing doesn't work out, what am I going to do? Type of a thing. And it was very easy to say no to something if you can articulate what's important to you. So for me, that's controlling my own schedule, back to time,
Mhm.
and then financial, to take care of our son. So if I got an offer in from somebody, or someone expressed interest in something, if it didn't hit both of those, instant no. I don't have to spend one more second thinking about it. All of that bandwidth can continue to go into the novel,
Yeah.
and I'm not wasting time thinking, oh, it's financially, we'll have a little more independence there, but I'm not going to control my schedule. We're going to move to city X. Okay, let me talk to my wife about this. Okay, let's go out there and maybe look around and see what it'd be like to raise a family there. Okay, discuss it again. All of that bandwidth could have been going into the book.
Yeah.
So being able to articulate what's important to you as you get out helps you say no to things, so you don't waste time on those and can focus on the things that do hit the things that are important to you.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to do that out of the gate. You have to build up to being able to do that. But eventually, I think it's important to be able to articulate what's important to you, so you can make decisions and not waste time stewing on things that have components to them that aren't important to you, or that would negate you doing one in the first place,
Yeah.
or taking advantage of something in the first place, or saying yes to something in the first place, and then focus your energies towards your passion and building what you want to build.
Yeah. The hardest part is finding out what your passion is, because a lot of people just go through life and it takes them a very long time to like figure out what it is that they want to do, and they just don't have any guidance or any mentorship that helps them like lean
Yeah.
in any direction. And a lot of the time, a lot of folks that serve or have served or have exposure to people who've served, they're that exposure tends to like lead them down paths that maybe sometimes helps them find things that they do feel passionate about,
Yeah, I think it's only going to get harder with these distraction devices that we've been talking about,
Oh yeah.
because you have to listen to a calling. I think the calling for me, I heard that calling to the military and to write, and I listened to that calling, and I didn't get dissuaded by anyone who told me, "Hey, do you know how hard it is to get through buds? Do you know what the attrition rate is?
Yeah.
That sort of thing." Or, "Hey, do you know how impossible it is to even to write a book, to get a book published, to be a number one New York Times bestselling author? You know the odds of that?" And I just never paid attention to that. I never paid attention to those odds,
Yeah.
because somebody did it. Obviously, it's possible. So I'm going to give it my best shot. Um, but now with all these distractions, all that time that goes into the doom scroll or whatever you're doing
Yeah.
on that device is time that you're not listening to your heart, listening to your soul, and not even figuring out intentionally, but just listening to that call. So what am I called to do in life? Instead, you're just like zzz, 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 scrolling through this thing,
Yeah.
and it's a distraction that's probably keeping you from finding that purpose. Because a lot of times I think you don't even have to search for it; it calls you. Just like I was called to military and to write,
Yeah.
and I just listened to it. I didn't say, "Oh, that's too hard. I'm not going to be a SEAL," or someone told me it's really hard to be a #1 New York Times bestselling author. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do something else instead and then be miserable.
Yeah.
So I just listened to the call.
Yeah, I part of the stuff that I do outside of, military stuff is like, um, it's been a very interesting experience because like I've just kind of like dove head first in and just attacked it as hard as I could and not really spent a whole lot of time worrying about what other people thought as much, especially like for the first couple years. Now there's obviously like extraneous things that you face, adversity that you face as you're going down this path and this process, and there are different things that come up that are like kind of like pulling you away from your focus on like whatever objective or mission that you have, and I think part of it is the consistency and attacking something. And I'm a guy of action. Like I like to think that I have a bias for action, and while sometimes that prevents me from doing prior proper planning, or it prevents me from thinking certain things through because maybe I'm a little impulsive on certain things. Uh, Even though that may happen occasionally, I do still have that bias for action. I'm doing something, I'm doing it, and I may not be great at it.
Well, learn.
I may be absolutely garbage at it for a
Yeah.
very long time, but you get better.
You're gonna
'Cause
learn.
You learn some lessons further, and you slowly just try to tailor it to become better. And you try to learn, and you try to teach yourself, and you try to adapt, and you try to make it better, and continually try to improve.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably a good explanation of like how my whole experience using these things has gone, where I feel like it was just garbage in the beginning and then slowly got better, and now we're at where we're at, where it's like I feel like I'm better than I was. I
Mhm.
still don't feel like I've done anything or accomplished anything, but I feel better than I was, and I
Mhm.
want to be better tomorrow,
Yeah, yeah.
and I want to be better the day after that, and
Mhm.
continue to improve. And I think that that's really all anybody can like expect from you for anything. And like if you had been listening to all these naysayers about stuff about like books and how hard it is and how hard it is to do these things, or how
Mhm.
hard it is to build a social media presence, or how hard it is to build a podcast, then you're just gonna be like, well, why am I even gonna try?
Right.
But that's why, like, I always tell people to just take action, do something. Don't listen to what other people are saying. You have to put plans together. You need logistics. You need some planning, but do it. Just get out there and do it. Don't be afraid. Don't wait till tomorrow. Start right now. And whatever it is, whether you're trying to be a better fisherman, or you're trying to be a better, guitar player, or you're trying to be a better author, or you're trying to be a better actor, or you're trying to be a better soldier, you're trying to do whatever it is, trying to be a better Uber driver. Okay, well then figure out how to like take action right now. Don't delay that to tomorrow when you can take action right now. And
Yeah.
the hard part is like once you start getting into the swing of things is setting up a schedule, because I have to
That's what I need to
budget
do.
time. I have to
Yeah.
budget time for myself to
I need to
PT.
get better at that.
I got to be better about it. I have to budget time to spend with my wife, because if I don't, I will just work myself to death.
Yeah.
I have to budget time for PT, because if I don't, I will be a miserable, sad, pathetic human being. I have
Yeah.
to, you know.
Yeah. I'm not that miserable.
I get miserable if I don't PT, man. I am a slot.
Yeah.
I'm just
I actually feel pretty good not
terrible.
PTing. That's probably not the best advice for people, but
See, for
yeah,
me,
it
it
feels
makes
pretty
me.
good.
I'm so much happier if I go work out, even if it's just going for a run or
Yeah.
going to the gym. I try to lift like 5 days a week, at minimum, and then steam room or sauna is like a mandatory thing for my
Oh
brain.
man, yeah, we got one. We bought one, and then we hooked it all up, and it doesn't work. So
Would you get a barrel?
we got a barrel, but now we're gonna get rid of that. So we rented a house in town, because we're kind of a little farther outside of town.
Gotcha.
So we rented one so our son could have the experience of riding his bike to friends' houses and being closer to school and all that stuff. So we rented
Yeah.
one for the last year in town. We're not there anymore, but it had a sauna in it. So I
Yeah.
started doing that. And through the fall, I was doing that as I was working out hard and all that. So it was fantastic. And that's the one thing I did keep doing even after I stopped working out and just got back to just focus on the book.
Yeah.
And that helped also because I don't have my phone in there, obviously, whatever. It's just quiet. So I'm thinking in there and just kind of relaxing in there, even though it's hot and uncomfortable. But also coming up, so I'd get out of there and I'd write down stuff, like real quick.
Yeah.
When I got out of there, but it was a time when I wasn't being interrupted.
Yeah.
So I need to get one of the square ones or whatever, and just put one in at the other house.
What temperature did you like to sit in?
What do I want to say? I think it went. I saw it at like 185. Is that right?
I think that's the way to go.
I think
Yeah.
185, and I did. Was it 12? No, 17 minutes. I don't know. I think it was like 17 minutes I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So the way it's been described to me, and I probably got this from Joe Rogan, I'm sure, because that's where I
I
first
think
started
that's
the
right. And it
sauna
might be
from.
wrong. I might be a little bit off, but I think it was, yeah.
It's like 185 degrees at 20 minutes, like I think a few times a week, and it like literally increases your lifespan, improves your cardiovascular capability, and apparently it's good for testosterone. Apparently it's good for brain health, circulation, all kinds of stuff. And I just feel naturally a lot better if I
No,
do
it was
it
20
every day.
minutes. You're exactly right.
20 minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do 20
Yeah.
minutes.
That was typically like how much I've tried to spend.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I do it 7 days a week if I can.
Yeah.
Because it's just.
Yeah, I was doing that. Yep, I was doing that. I missed a couple days every now and again, but
Sure.
For the most part, I wouldn't schedule like 4 days or 3 days because I knew I'd miss one. So I'm just like every day, especially because you hear that it's supposed to be good for you every day anyway.
Yeah.
Knowing that I'll miss a few and it'll end up being 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But that was fantastic to have one. So I need to get that going again up at the main house, and then I got to get better about blocking the time out for the day. So I wake up and just write for 3 or 4 hours and then check the distraction machines and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, I up to this point, I felt like I'm the kind of entrepreneur making a computer in 1977 in my garage type of a thing, where I'm the CEO, the CFO, the CMO. If there was social media back then, I'd be the social media manager. I do every single job myself out of that garage. Let people know this said computer exists, like let people know said book exists. And now I feel like moving from that stage up into, hey, time to move into an office building and have some support built in. So I've had a chief of staff for the last almost 2 years now, and it's been fantastic, and slowly building out a team that can help really just give me time to write.
Yeah.
And so I'm not doing all those things that I would be doing if I was making a computer in 1977 in my garage by myself.
Yeah, because that's a lot. That's been one of the biggest challenges for me is I don't have a team. I got a manager. I don't have a team though that does all this stuff for me. I'm creating everything in the morning. I've got an editing team like for certain things, but most of the stuff, like most of the short vertical videos I'm making, I'm posting everything. I'm doing all the scheduling for all that stuff. If I'm traveling, I'm booking all that stuff for myself. I'm like setting up logistics for everything that I'm doing anytime I'm going anywhere. But that's also because I have a full-time job still. So like I don't really have.
I know I want to have you on my podcast so I can ask about this.
Yeah,
I want to do
like,
that.
I want to do that stuff too. Like these are all things that I manage myself for the most part. There's some things that like my manager is able to like help me with, but most everything I'm doing myself. But I also don't have as much time for other things like the actual work or doing more research on things or doing deep dives on things that I find interesting. Like, because I like that stuff. I like dialogue. I like doing deep dives on stuff. I like talking to people. I like getting to know people. I like stories. I think stories are super valuable, like I said, especially in our culture. And I'm genuinely interested in getting to know people, and I'm genuinely interested in learning about all these wide varieties of things. But I just like I'm so limited on time. I have to budget time for certain things that I know if I don't do it, I'm gonna fall apart. Like budgeting time for PT, budgeting time for the sauna, budgeting time for for the work that I get done before the morning, and then I have to make sure that I have time set aside. Because when I'm at my actual day job, like that time is explicitly for the folks there, and it has to be dedicated to them. I can't be getting distracted with all this other stuff.
Right.
So that's that I am very deliberate with making sure that that time is for them. And people wouldn't know that from online because like they see all this slew of content and they think that I'm doing it during the day, but really in actuality, it's just because I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning every day and shaving my face, eating breakfast, and making all the content for the day before I even go to my day job. Wow. So that's most of the stuff, and people don't see the behind the scenes things, just like they don't see the behind the scenes things that you're dealing with every day, with how much intense research you're doing into all of these micro things just for like 2 chapters to make sure that it is immersive and captivating and gets your attention, you know. And there's a lot of that, and that's part of the problem is like why this is so important, like getting together and talking to people face to face, because it provides a little bit more perspective and context.
Sure.
And context is huge, you know, and in a day and age where context is oftentimes lacking in the conversation, I think that's one of the things that makes podcasts so valuable.
There's and you know, people also they see the end product. You know, like they see your social media, they see this podcast, they don't see the work that goes into it. They know there is work that goes into it because there has to be, but they don't dwell on that. They're just seeing this and then they're on the next thing or whatever it might be. And like, so the whole reason that there is even a TV show is because of my friend Jared Shaw. And when I started writing, I had no connection to Hollywood, no connection to publishing at all, zero. So all I had was the foundation that I built, and knew that that I could write a good book. And I wrote it for myself. I didn't think about publishers or agents. Didn't think about social media presence. Didn't think about a website. Didn't think about any of those other things. And until the first book was done, and then I started to think about, okay, how do I get this to Simon and Schuster? And what happened for the show was that I got a call out of the blue in November of 2017. There's a point to this. So 2017. So it's before the book comes out. The first book comes out in March of 2018. So a few months before, I get a call from my buddy Jared, and I hadn't talked to him in 5 years. I say my buddy because we're teammates together, and then he got out of the military before I did, and then I got out a couple of years later, and then we just didn't connect during that time. So he calls me in November of 2017 and says, "Hey, did you remember me?" And
like, well, yeah, of course,
like, of course, Jared, I remember you. Yeah, how's it going, man? And he says, fine, it's going great, but man, I always wanted to call and thank you for something that you did for me in the SEAL teams. And I was like, couldn't remember what it was. And he said, man, when I was getting out, you're the only person that asked me to come to your office, sat me down, talked to me about transitioning to the private sector, introduced me to people in the private sector, and then followed up with me later. And I didn't really remember any of that. And he's like, hey, I really appreciate it. And I always do that for good guys. If I'm going to help, if they want to stay in, I'm going to help them. If they want to get out, I'm going to help them. That's
like
just
that.
how I am.
I think that's super valuable.
And it really made an impression. And he said, I always wanted to thank you. And I said, hey man, no problem. How's everything going? He said, it's going great, but I heard you wrote a book. And I said, yeah, I wrote a book. It's coming out in a few months. I have this thing called a galley, and I learned what a galley was about a week before. And it's like a paperback edition, essentially, of a hardcover that's still really a rough draft, and it goes out to reviewers ahead of time, so that a review can drop on the day of the book. And I just found out what one of those was, and had some, and so I said, yeah, I'd love to send you a copy. And he said, well, yeah, I'd like that, but I'd like to give it to a friend of mine. And I said, no problem. Who's that? I'll sign it for him. And he said, Chris Pratt. And I was like, oh,
a friend of mine.
That's interesting.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I'm like, that's very interesting. Because actually, as I started writing the book in December of 2014, being a child of the 80s, of course, I think this is going to be a New York Times bestseller, and then it's going to get turned into a movie or television. And so I wrote my first sentence, and I was like, who should star as this character that I've just created? And I thought, I don't want someone, and this is once again, no connection to Hollywood, no connection to publishing. And it's in my little office off our bedroom in Coronado, California, a couple years left in the military, getting ready to get out, essentially, getting ready to drop my papers. And I thought, I don't want someone who's done these kind of roles before. I'm like, who needs this for their career? And I thought, I just saw this guy in Zero Dark 30 who looked very different than the character that he played in Parks and Rec. I'm like, Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt will star in this. He needs it for his career. And of course, this is before Guardians of the Galaxy, before Jurassic World, before A-list stardom. And then like I write another sentence and I'm like, well, I picked Chris. Who should direct? I think, Antoine Fuqua. Antoine should direct this. I love Shooter, love Training Day, of course, Tears of the Sun. I'm like, Antoine will direct this thing. And then I just kept writing. And then it comes around like that. Jared gives it to Chris. Chris reads it in December of 2017 and calls the first week in January 2018, wanting to option it. And another buddy of mine, who was like on the speaking circuit, gave a copy of it to Antoine, because Antoine was one of his events.
Oh, that's cool.
And Antoine wanted it as well, almost at the same time. And so Chris and Antoine knew each other, so they worked it out. And now we're all good buddies, and we're making this show, and we're executive producers on it, and all that. But the point of it was that it comes back to what I tell my kids, which is never miss an opportunity to make somebody's day. And I didn't even mean to do that to Jared. I just wanted to help him out because he was a great SEAL, and wanted to help him out with whatever he was going to do next. And in this case, it happened to come back, and now we're making this show.
I think that is probably the best way to wrap this up, actually, is that right there. Never miss an opportunity to make someone's day. I think that right there is probably one of the best things to remember out of this. Not that everything else wasn't important too, but yeah, I think that is, if everybody took that and applied that to their life on a day-to-day basis, I think the world would be a better place, in general, because everybody would be helping each other.
Yeah. There's something to it.
Yeah. Well, hey, Jack, I appreciate your time again. I appreciate you taking the time to come out here out of your busy schedule. It means a lot to me. I was very excited about this. I was looking forward
me too,
to
man.
it for
This is
a really
awesome.
long time.
This is awesome.
I am so excited to see your show, the upcoming series. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I think you guys are going to continue to crush it. You're going to continue to take off, and hopefully we can meet back up, and I can come on your podcast.
Let's do it. Yeah. Because I have a lot of questions for you.
Yeah,
how are you doing all this?
How
are you getting up at 4:30 every morning and making this content? It's amazing.
I am all about it, and I look forward to it a lot.
A lot of times I'm just going to bed at 4:30.
Well, I go to bed at 9 to 9:30 to be fair, like an old man.
And for those listening, that's the way to go. Certainly.
But yes, again, thank you again, and we'll hopefully see you again here soon.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.